Folks, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming out on this lovely evening to the March 11th meeting of the Town of Canandaigua Planning Board. See some new faces and some old faces, but let me introduce the people who are up front here. Kim Burkert's our remote facilities coordinator. She's over here. Our recording secretary, Karine Hatch, is in the back. Board members include Tim Schneider, newly appointed. Congratulations, Tim. Mark Tolbert, board member. Amanda Van Lyken, board member. Bob LaCourse, board member. I'm Chuck Weiler. I'm the chairman of the board. Sarah Reynolds, who's our town planner. Harry Cooper, who is our representative from MRB, our engineering firm, and Chris Nadler, our attorney. So we're going to follow the agenda as much as possible as published. If you didn't get an agenda, they're available here. If you didn't sign in, please sign in so we have a record of your attendance. And we can, there's an honest man, thank you. If you'd like to address the board, would you please come to the podium, give us your name and address, give us your comments, give us your questions, and we'll try to respond to them as submitted or as given to us. And we will operate on each application as we'll have the applicant make a presentation. We'll have a board deliberation on each application. Then we'll go to the audience. I'll ask for any public participation, public comments, and then we'll reconvene as a board and hopefully come up with a decision tonight. So let's move on. And first item is the privilege of the floor. If anyone here or out there in digital land would like to address the board on an issue that's not on the agenda, now would be the time to do so. If not, I assume you're all here for something that's near and dear to you. Okay, that being said, there are no legal notices required. We have no new hearings. We have a reopened hearing, which will occur very shortly. And everything else is not requiring legal notice. So we'll move on to item number 1, which is CPN 2024-117. I'd like to reopen a hearing for an application from Marlon and Lean Sensenate, being represented by Nixon Peabody, Jared Lusk specifically for property at 2061 County Route 8. This is a continuous site plan special use permit application for the construction and operation of a personal wireless communication facility on a 77-acre parcel in the AR2 zoning. And Jared, welcome back.
Good evening. I'm actually not Jared.
Oh,
I am Steve Fantuzzo, Nixon Peabody,
okay.
Attorneys for Verizon, also in attendance. I don't know if this is working. Okay. Dave Weisenreeder, Kostich Engineering, and Jeff Skolnick, NBC Consulting. First item for discussion with the planning board attorney is that Verizon is open to extending the shot clock if needed through the next meeting date through March 26th.
Somewhere, whatever the next meeting date is.
25th.
And since we last met in November, we've submitted additional application material. To summarize the submission, it includes first an updated site plan, which shows the proposed alternate tower location, which is now more than double the distance to the nearest home from the previous location. The nearest home previously being 475 feet versus 1,050 feet now. And also shows the similar site setup, which is a small 0.23 acre area to be leased by Verizon with access and utility easements. Second is updated photo simulations of the tower at the proposed alternate location as requested by the board. Many of those photos were taken from the landowner's property itself, so the the view is even closer than the surrounding residences. Third is drop call data, which is a supplement to the existing RF report, which was previously submitted. And this demonstrates a drop call rate of 6.43% for the period measured, which is well over the 1 to 2% threshold to demonstrate the significant gap or the need as set forth by federal courts. Fourth is a statement about Verizon's online coverage maps, which serve merely as marketing tools. Fifth is the real property market studies from upstate New York, which all analyze actual sales data and all conclude no adverse effect on property values. Six is various updated project documents for the alternate location. There's an updated EAF for seeker purposes, updated tower design letter, and updated estimates for removal and erosion control. And last is the updated adjoiners exhibit, which shows the setbacks from surrounding residences. And lastly is the written responses to Mr. Campanelli's memorandum, although the vast majority of those items are covered in the exhibits just summarized. So in sum, Verizon submits it has established for the record, one, that there's a significant gap in coverage in the Yerkes cell. Two, that the proposed 120-foot tower is the minimum height necessary in order to remedy the gap and provide reliable coverage to the Yerkes area. And three, that the site design, and particularly the proposed alternate location, being more than double the distance from the nearest home compared to the prior location, is the least intrusive means to remedy the coverage gap and provide reliable service to the coverage area. So if there's any questions about the submission, we'd be glad to answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Okay, yeah, there was quite a bit of information you sent to us, and I think we all plowed through it. I would ask, is in your cover letter, you'd mentioned that this is an alternative site. Is your intent to move it to this site now? Are you keeping those sites open as an option, or what's your?
Yeah, so we're basically applying in the alternative. If this site and location were to be approved, it would be acceptable, and Verizon would design it on that location, but just didn't want to sort of, completely abandon the initial. So that's why it was presented that way.
Okay. I think for the board's purposes, we'd like to know which specifically site plan you're relying on. So, okay, well, certainly appreciate the alternative. It is further away from the homes. Chris, is there anything you want to say regarding how the board approaches this? I guess, the thing with the Telecommunications Act, this board has the authority for the placement, construction, any modification of the site plan. That's essentially our charge.
And special use permit, but yes.
Yep.
Correct.
So,
I think you have the information, or I think it's your decision whether you have the information required by you to make those decisions. You've read Mr. Campanelli's brief and the attachments. You've read Nixon Peabody's brief and the attachments. And I think this is at a place where you can make a decision. Obviously, there's a public hearing that's been continued. I think there's a number of people who are interested in giving you their thoughts, as well as Mr. Campanelli appears to be online. It seems to me that I guess what you need is Verizon to say which one they're proposing, which alternative they're proposing. My recollection from November is that this board indicated to the applicant that they were more in favor of the alternative location, but I may be wrong about that. Is that, did the board give that indication?
I don't think it was a board consensus. I think certainly consideration. Personally, I feel that way. Yes.
You would prefer that. You would prefer to consider that. Does anybody disagree? Does anybody like the original location better?
No.
Mr. Fantuzzo, would you like to tell the board which one you're proposing?
So propose the alternate here, what's on the updated site plan here, last dated February 3rd.
Okay, so we'll take that as your current application and move forward with that. I guess the only thing applying that particular area of the site, was there any reason why the tower location wasn't moved further to the south, closer to the tree line? Is there a reason that it's sitting sort of out in the field, so to speak? Specifically, I'm thinking of possibly behind the greenhouses. Again, this is a personal thought. Was there any reason it was more centered out toward the closer to the wetlands and closer to the power lines?
Stephen, Matt.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Dave Weisner with Costage Engineering. I did participate on the design visit with Jeff and the landowner. One of the things the landowner wanted to do is minimize the impact to the agricultural operations. What we've done in this instance, if I could, step over here, there are existing farm lanes, and those are delineated by, the single lines through here. There's also an existing farm lane that runs here and through here. So what we've done is jump down to the existing farm lanes to the best that we could to minimize the impact of the farm lanes.
Okay. So your intent is that the farmer or the future owner of the property will share the access lane with?
Yes, in this
Right.
instance, we have proposed a A-frame barrier gate out at the road, but the landowner would have a key or the combination such that he could use that if necessary, if he deemed that he wanted to. Currently, the farm operations do utilize the farm lanes that are on the back of the property. Also, one of the things we did, you talked about maybe back in here, we also tried to exceed the setback for the tower, the closest property lines and the homes that was up on the northern option. We tried to push it back as far as we could until we did get close to the wetlands that were delineated at this point. And there's also a pocket of wetlands here on the east side of the existing pond that's on the neighbor's property. So again, trying to minimize impacts, follow the existing lane to the extent possible, and also maintain as much separation distance to the closest residents that we could.
Okay. Yeah, I would think, come back, get to the back of the out parcel there and make a dog leg. And swing in, that could be a possibility.
I don't know if you want to pull up like an aerial, but there is farm operations all through that area. So again, we're trying to minimize impact to the farm operations.
Just out of curiosity, how far could the tower be moved towards that tree cluster? And still have the offset from any type of tree line or property?
I'm gonna have to wait a second so I can see which tree cluster you're referring to.
Well, it's basically the southern property.
Okay,
And along the lines of Chuck's question.
over here?
Yeah.
How far could we move it? Now, we do have to be a minimum tower height plus 20 feet. The closest property line, that would be about 145 feet. I think we are currently 393 from that property corner to here. Maybe
Okay.
Stephen can help me out with this distance. I think it's a little over 400 or maybe 440.
440.
440 currently over here.
And then
So
you
it's,
need
our tower is proposed right around this area.
40 feet, so.
It's essentially at the end of that farm
Yeah,
lane.
this farm line, actually, the farm line does continue up this way. But you're right, and then the farm line splits and comes this way, so what we did is tucked the compound pipe against that existing farm lane. It's not a gravel farm lane, but it's used for the tractor, so there's no ruts and, it's actively used for tractor traffic. And this is all agricultural through here in this direction.
And the trees would not cause any interference with any of your.
This is actually
Signaling.
cattails, this is delineated.
No,
for
I'm
wetland.
talking about that.
Oh, down
tree
here?
cluster, yeah.
Okay, yeah, the antenna center line's 115
15?
feet. Yes, we are above the tree line.
Okay.
Hey, while I'm here, one of the questions last time we were here was about the transmission line pole height, 60 feet.
60. So you'll be twice that.
Yes.
And while we're on that, does a easement exist for the power lines?
There is.
Okay. And that shown on your plan? I take it.
I don't have that plan in front of me right now, but
I don't recall seeing it.
yeah.
Well,
As far as the setbacks, there's another issue that we talked about last time, I'll touch on it again. Anytime you have transmission lines, electric transmission lines, tower height, tower setback needs to be 1.5 times the tower height. I think that's 188 feet.
188 feet.
There you go. So that was
Yep.
another factor that we had to take into consideration with tower placement.
It just seems to me that you run that lane up the middle, you're sticking the tower in the middle of the field. If you tucked it closer to one of the setback lines, you would have more free and open clear space for farming, but
Well, again, we're minimal impact. The only area of current active agriculture that we are impacting would be just the compound area and the landscaping around it. It's the only thing we're really impacting for active agriculture. If we were to like cut over in where he plows in this direction,
Mhm.
it causes issues. And again, the direction was to minimize impact to agriculture.
so his active farming is to either side of that farm path. The farm path that you're gonna more or less
Yes,
align
yes,
with.
he's got agriculture over here, he's got agriculture over here, and the driveway following the farm lane. Minimal impact.
But it would take it more out of the view of the neighbors if you moved it closer to the line,
To the south.
to the south,
Yeah.
which is really the best thing we can possibly have hope for here.
I would, in looking at topography, I think we're like a low area here, we're on a little ridge. It
There's
looks like
farm-
we do have
there's
drainage that
farm.
flows up that direction.
Well, consideration as we
Yep,
discuss things here.
And this land's for sale, right? This farmer's.
I did
land
hear
for
that,
sale. Pardon?
I did hear that.
Yeah, so. The act of saving the agricultural land, which is great, we try to do that all the time.
Yep.
But he's selling. And I wonder what the new property owner would say to that too.
Well, I imagine whoever's purchasing would also be active agriculture, I would hope.
Yeah, would hope.
In looking at your site plan, how many future towers, future carriers are you allowing?
We've set it up for total of 3 carriers.
Okay, so the 2 smaller rectangles.
Yeah,
the-
future.
Okay.
Yep. That's shown both on the site plan and the compound detail, and also on the tower elevation. You'll see that it's set up for 2 future carriers on that as well, 15-foot.
Yeah, so
vertical.
I think the reason I was asking is on the site plan that I'm looking at, it clearly identifies, they look the same. The arrow goes to the one that's closest to the south line, that just didn't get a vote, I just wanted to be sure of that.
Okay.
And then, what I didn't see was the data that it has a 90-mile-an-hour wind with a 1/2-inch wind load data.
Yeah, it's gonna be 1.5 inches, I think it is. As far as the,
Place.
yeah. EIA, TIA 222H design criteria, but yes, will be designed to current structural criteria for the state of New York and this county.
Well, and is it designed to whatever the town,
That
is it
aligns,
a town specific requirement?
it is.
Yeah.
It's in 20.
Does it align with the state requirement that he's talking about?
Well, what you just stated aligns with what the code refers to. There's a 90-mile-an-hour wind. 1/2 inch of it.
I'm pretty sure it's more than that, but okay.
Well, before we get too far with where we're gonna put it, does the board feel comfortable that the applicant has justified the need for the tower?
I'd like to hear any comments, public comments.
Oh, okay.
And also what the other attorney might have to say.
Because that's one of our considerations. It's obviously
Data has
The
been
applicant.
provided, yeah.
He's got to prove that there is a need.
Right.
You're certainly familiar with 22060, which is the regulations that pertain to a wireless code communication facility, and to ensure that all those standards have been addressed to a greater degree.
Fair to note also that you're requesting 2 waivers, right? Or
The drumlin.
the drumland
the
and ag
one-
land, right? Those are the 2 waivers.
Or what was it?
And the
Ag
I
land.
think that's the same provision in the code, and the second one I thought was like
Yes, should
a
be.
2-year.
Special, yeah, that's it.
Oh,
That's right.
thank you.
The renewal, I believe, every 2 years.
The drumlins issue, we've addressed that before, many times over, and I think the way we resolved it was if the applicant can prove that the tower is structurally supportive or can be supported on the drumlin, that
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's-
believe a
certified engineer.
prior applicant made the point that engineering and construction techniques have come so far from that drumlin standard that was originally included in special use permits for cell towers, that it's not a concern anymore. My recollection is that the entire town's on the drumlin, or significant portions of the town's on the drumlin.
And the other point being that if it falls on that property.
Yes.
I may make one comment about your site plan. Your driveway, you're calling out for a 20x50 fire department pull off.
Yes.
You're only showing a 32-foot. You've shown a 12-foot driveway. And you should have 12-foot plus 20 as a pull off 20x50 separate. So in other words, a 20x50 and plus the actual driveway. It does not look compared like the code requires.
Total width of 32 feet.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like a pull off, but this one shows just like
It's 20 foot wide through that area.
right.
I think that was also another comment.
Oh. Well, I'm glad I noted something you noted.
Okay, see if there's any other issues we have to address before we go to the audience. You found the application complete. So that's, that, you can check that off. We did get some referrals from other agencies, which I can go through after we hear from the public. All right, well, let's do that. From a piece of correspondence that was handed out to the board last month on February 11th. The neighbors involved that passed out a draft resolution. They asked the board to consider, which included a number of issues that they felt, and specifically, I'll go through them. And if anybody in the audience has items other than these, please come forward at the appropriate time. The tower will be placed on a drumlin and actively farmed land. It will fail to prove the tower can sustain the 90-mile-an-hour winds with an ice load. Failed to prove the need for the facility. There is adequate cell phone service in the area. It only studied low band frequency. There is no gap in service that was proven. Tower not compatible with the general character of the neighborhood. Loss of property values. Ability to contain ice fall. Failed to complete the environmental assessment. Violates purpose of the AR2 district. and violates our comp plan in an effort to preserve farmland. So those appear to be the issues that I could pull out of that piece of correspondence that was handed out. If the neighbors or anyone else would like to address the board regarding these issues or others, please come forward and please limit your comments to about 3 minutes. And do give us your name and address, and I will now open the floor to any comments.
Want to designate your town plan as 10 people.
Our official timekeeper is our town planner.
You'll be less than.
You'll be less than 3 minutes.
Let's talk really fast.
So the presenter said that,
Name, please.
James Dwyer, 2025 County Road 8.
Welcome back.
I've got a, thank you, I've got a statement here, but I just have to respond to the Nixon Peabody
Okay, clock's running.
representative here. So anyway, they wanted to reduce the effects of the farmland problem to a fellow that's getting, he wanted the tower there for money. And, you can't have it all, I would say. It's common sense that that tower should be as far away and near a tree line as possible. For a farmer to say, I want to rent the land to a tower, but I don't want it to interrupt my operation, is ridiculous. So this new project application, it still claims a minimal intrusion to our neighborhood, which couldn't be further from the truth. On page 331, the site setting line has boxes checked commercial, forest, and agricultural, but the residential box isn't checked. It seems like the residential aspect of this tower proposal has been overlooked repeatedly. The realtor comparisons in this new application are not apples to apples at all and should be discounted entirely. The table showed towers in areas of either very few houses close to a tower or densely populated metro area near large cities. The table showing before and after sales use tower distances of 1/2 mile or 1 mile from the tower. Our houses are only in a few cases barely a 1/4 mile away and are far less than that in many other houses. The local realtor letters showing adverse effects are far more accurate than that proposal, that application, because they are familiar with the neighborhood and markets. The values are 20 to 25% less are verified and they're common sense. Please remember that our homes are our most valuable assets. This tower is absolutely more greed than need for Bell Atlantic. Just a quick Google search before I came here. They rent out space on that tower for upwards up to $3,000 or more per spot, and then they give the farmer $1,800 a month. It's a moneymaker. Besides, it's why they don't want to go someplace. So they want their own tower to get their own space. The federal courts have ruled that photos other than from the home views are defective. Yet this new site plan continues to use photos taken from the street. Some of them are only a few inches above the pavement and using the house itself as a screen. They put the house between the camera and the site. In most cases, the perspective is very distorted, and we have stated in our letters that our view of this monstrous, I'm almost done, structure is from the east and now the southeastern view of our windows, patios, and backyards. And there should be no waiver of the 2-year limit for the special use permit by the applicant. I think what we've seen over the last 6 months proves that somebody should keep a thumb on it. Ladies and gentlemen, this presentation of this application has been to put lipstick on a pig, but a pig it still is, and an ugly one at that. I'm asking you to please protect the residents of County Road 8 and deny Bell Atlantic Mobile a special use permit for the tower and the Cincy property. Thank you.
Mark, do we have a copy of that? Do you have that copy?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like someone on also.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, is it Mr. Campanelli? Good evening, Mr. Campanelli.
Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Great,
You-
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to speak. So I don't have too much to say this evening, except to comment on a number of things. I've read the most recent submissions by the applicant. One of the most critical ones, for some reason, didn't make it to me, and that's Exhibit W, which is the purported drop call data. For some reason, that didn't reach me. Don't know why. So I can't comment on drop call data that I haven't seen, which is very troubling to me. Equally troubling is the representation made by the applicant that the maps attached to the memorandum that I submitted to you are not evidence that Verizon doesn't suffer from significant gaps in its personal wireless service at the precise location where it wants to build its facility. This is what I submit to you. Exhibit H that I've submitted to my memorandum is a map on Verizon's website. Now, opposing counsel can argue that that is a marketing map, not to be taken as evidence of gaps or lacks of gaps in coverage. However, Exhibit G, which is attached to my memo, is an actual map of Verizon's actual data obtained directly from the FCC, showing Verizon's actual wireless coverage current as of November 22nd, 2024. Now, when I say this from the FCC, Verizon is required under federal law to provide accurate coverage maps and data to the FCC under penalties of criminal offenses. You can get prosecuted for submission of a false instrument for filing if Verizon were to submit false information. According to the records of the FCC, not marketing data, Verizon has no significant gaps in the specific location where they want to build this facility. That has nothing to do with marketing. In fact, Verizon applied for federal funding based upon a claim that this accurately shows its actual coverage current as of November 2024. Now, under both state and federal law, you, the board, you get to determine what weight to give any evidence to submit before you, whether it's submitted by me or Verizon or anybody else. I ask you to consider the evidence that I submitted to you from the FCC. Second, while it is a positive thing that they did a better job of taking some photos showing slightly better visualization of the actual adverse aesthetic impacts this facility is going to inflict upon the nearby homes, they're still not up to the standard. They're still not taken from the perspective of the actual homes. And again, they're strategically taken from locations to minimize the view shed. With regard to the reduction in property values, you have professional expert opinion letters submitted as Exhibit E to my submission, where real estate brokers and licensed professionals who are not just familiar with general real estate markets, but have an acute understanding of this specific real estate market, have given professional opinions that if this tower goes up, it's going to reduce the values of the properties from 10 to 30%. By contrast, the applicant submits to you appraisals from 2020 pertaining to properties of which you have no information. Most offensively, quite frankly, is the property assessment overview that was provided to you regarding 3 specific properties. I would be embarrassed to submit this to you, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. So they submitted a property assessment review which addresses 3 specific properties, one of which—
Mr. Campanelli, maybe wrap it up in the next minute.
Yes.
Your timer just went off.
Sorry. Okay, I'll be very quick. I'd ask you to look at the estimate for the value of the property at 1504 Hawshaw Road in the town of Dryden, where they claim that the property went up 62%. The property was sold 19 months after it was bought. Now, why would property go up 62% in 19 months? And why would somebody sell it in 19 months? Because when I'm telling you this is a flipped property, all of the data they provided you doesn't provide any reason why property values would go up. This was likely a flipped house. Somebody bought it, put in new kitchens, put in new walls, put in new bathrooms, and it increased the value of the property. None of the data in their appraisals shows you any change in the value of the property based upon something other than the installation of a cell tower. There is no evidence that property values go up because of the installation of a cell tower. Thank you.
Understand. Thank you, Mr. Campanelli. All right, anyone else in the audience?
Yes, please.
See some familiar faces.
Good evening. My name is Mark Detweiler. I live at 2021 County Road 8, which is on the northern end of that map there.
Mhm.
I'm a homeowner and community resident near the proposed site, and I stand here today to ask you again to please deny the request for the permit. I won't belabor the points I've already made to you. I've submitted a letter. I'm sure you've read it. Obviously, our attorney submitted information. I know you've read that. I will simply stand here to say, please understand that the community has brought forth to you specific concerns in relation to the construction of this structure. Not generalized, not vague concerns. The community members have come to you and told you, I have come to you and told you, this is the specific effect the construction of this will have on the way I enjoy my home and the way my home is valued. And even at the new proposed site, a 12-story tall structure will be visible from my property. Even at the proposed site, the alternate proposed site, forgive me. The evidence that we have submitted to you from local realtors shows that this will have an adverse effect on the value of our homes. I ask you please again to consider our thoughts, please consider our specific concerns, and deny the permit. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jim. Anyone else?
Go ahead. Thanks. Hi, I'm Jessica LaFever at 2172 County Road 8. So thank you for hearing us out. I didn't speak last time. I just want to say we purchased our home in 2019 and we have since 2 years ago, we put brand new roof, standing seam metal roof. We put siding on our property around the house, and we have put significant amount of money into our home with hopes that we are going to continue to remain living there with our 2- and 3-year-old son for the rest of our life. We are continuing to meet with contractors and we're discussing renovating our kitchen, making significant improvements as we have been since we moved onto the property. This blooming tower will significantly affect the livelihood of our community. So I am asking that you deny this proposal and keep in mind our future generation, our children, our neighborhood. Although I'm sure these are lovely gentlemen, please recognize that this is their job. This is our livelihood. So please again, deny this proposal and think about us, the neighborhood, and our future generation.
Thanks, Jim. Anyone else? Will we move on? Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jeanette Detweiler, 2021 County Road 8. I said a lot of things last time, but really I'm just here to remind you of one part of your code, which is it seems like they've tried to distract you from the availability of alternative, less intrusive sites or opportunities for co-location. They in their original proposal offered multiple suitable alternatives, and now we're trying to propose this is the only one. Also, this will still be very visible from my house, and Tracy, who couldn't be here tonight, the image from her property she wanted me to point out to you, not indicative of at all of how it will look from her back deck where she has a nice pool. It'll be extremely visible right from where she spends most of her time.
What's Tracy's address? You know, if you know.
Ooh, I don't know, but you know, it's on there, so I'm sure we should. Yeah,
Tracy Thomas.
yeah, Tracy Thomas.
Oh,
2033 County.
Yeah, they took it from like the very front corner of the driveway, I believe. But she was willing to give them a picture of her backyard. Anyway,
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Courtney Lumber. My address is 2095 County Road 8. Initially I'd come up here and shared, all about my husband and I buying a home that was foreclosed and the equity of it. But I did want to share one additional thing is when we initially talked, the tower was impacting us, but then with that alternative siting, now it's in my daughter's backyard, or like in her window. So when she looks out the window and we talk, it's right in her backyard. And I would hate for her to have that as she grows up. Thank you.
2095.
95.
That's correct.
Anyone else? Okay, board? I think, you know, obviously we have certain regulations that we have to follow, but we also are somewhat restricted in acting on an application strictly because it doesn't look good, the aesthetics. I mean, I think that has been proven many times over that just because a cell tower or any type of structure, especially in the case of a communications tower, isn't nice to look at. It's not a reason for denial. There are specific items that we look at regarding the justification, meeting standard setback codes and requirements, which are handled in our site plan process. So I guess that's the situation we're in, and we as a board have to act based on what's in front of us. So, board members, how do you feel?
Just like to maybe ask a question. The photos and the perspectives of impacts that have been provided, do they meet the burden of, they have not been taken from the properties. I've heard that from both sides. But does what's been submitted meet the burden of providing the board the visual, and maybe even more impactful visual than would be from on those properties?
I believe they do meet the burden with what they've submitted. Based on my review of the law and based on what has been submitted, I believe that complies with our code and federal regulations.
Yeah, I agree. I think the photo schematics, we use them quite often in terms of balloons and stuff like that. And you obviously you can't have a perspective from every corner of the property. So I guess as long as you meet standards for photo schematics, that's sort of what's being provided here.
That's my understanding of the law. I mean, one of the reasons it's given in some of the cases is, you know, there's special areas on someone's property. Maybe, you know, your back corner is your most favorite spot, but there's no way that this board or, you know, the applicant can tell that. So it's not that you're not able to require photos from every single angle. The requirement is photo simulations, and I think they have provided that.
We heard Mr. Campanelli say that he did not receive this drop call data, which is kind of an hingeman, I think, in the board understanding whether the burden for the purpose of this is met. And I do recall him requesting that all information be sent.
Yeah.
Hang on. I am gonna ask Mr. Fantuzzo to address something that Mr. Campanelli said, but I do want to make clear that the standard isn't whether Mr. Campanelli got the information, it's whether this board got the information. And I hope that information was sent to Mr. Campanelli, but that is not a legal requirement in any situation. That being said, I would like Mr. Fantuzzo to address the FCC information that Mr. Campanelli raised. If you have a
Sure.
response.
Yeah, first of all, so we submitted the full application, including the drop call data, to the town with a request to forward the entire application to Mr. Campanelli. So
No, I forwarded it to him. I forwarded
yeah,
everything
so
that was submitted.
if he
I
forgot
forwarded
to
everything
read
that
that,
was
that's not our issue. Second, the argument about the marketing map has been made before, and it's actually been litigated in Eastern District of New York, 2022 case, direct quote. Likewise, a marketing map on Verizon's website containing an express disclaimer related to the accuracy of its coverage information does not constitute reliable much less substantial evidence on which the board could base its findings of adequate wireless service. So the reality is that, and he knows, that's just not how that's not how they're engineered, that's not how they find gaps. They're done locally, and the RF graphs were submitted. There was a request for drop call data, which was provided, that exceeds the minimum threshold. So respectfully, there's adequate information there to demonstrate the need and the gap. So that's our response to that.
Yeah, and I did send a link to the entire application, the entire submission on February 4th, 2025.
How about the issue of property values?
February 4th, 2025, to tjc@campanelli.pc.com.
Regarding the issue of property values, the effect of such a facility, we do have, as part of the neighbors exhibits, correspondence from realtors saying that there would be a drop in home values, property values. Yet we have in the applicants as an exhibit, a lot of marketing studies that says that would not drop. They're supplied by appraisers. I think it was quite a detail. And in regard to the neighbors, the sources of information were from local real estate agents. So who am I to say?
I know I did some research on that too myself, and I actually called a few realtors and found 20% decrease in value, average. So the interesting, the landowner is going to make a lot of money on this, which is fine with him. He's farming a different way. But the homeowners don't see any of this benefit, but also a deficit with their home values. With no offer to them or anything like that. It's difficult. Now, the real estate agents I talked to said, they told me about don't buy one near one. In this local area. So I went in and verified what was given to me, and it was about 20% difference in home values.
Based on their opinions.
Based on their years of experience in this area.
So was that on the initial plan or the alternate plan?
They said basically they told me if it's in your backyard and you can see it, it's about a 20%. 18 to 20%. Oh, yeah, I have one in my backyard. I can barely see it. First one in May.
February.
What's that?
Yes. Over a month.
And does it ultimately blend into the
It does.
environment?
Yeah.
Scenery?
Well, I do think, as Chuck raised the point, to try and move that location further towards that tree line, it just looks like a lollipop sticking up in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
From the renderings. And if there's some backdrop that could disrupt some of that from different angles, I think, yes, there would be some additional loss in the ag land, but we heard from a farmer just last week that as long as you keep it at right angles, you can plow the field efficiently. That was on Thomas Road.
And I think this would be a good opportunity to consider something like that. So property's in for sale. If the potential buyer was aware that the tower would be located in a specific area and it may affect field operations, or he may not be able to farm it the way he wants to farm it. I mean, the royalty and what he's getting from the rental of the tower more than offset what he's making in the field.
I think if you keep it at right angles, it's gonna have minimal impact on farm activity.
So I think what the board's saying is, we'd like to see you consider another alternative, and the alternative would be closer to that tree line
So, yeah, a couple of points if I may.
Sure.
The first is with respect to the property values. So again, our submission has quotes from federal cases saying that basically a broker's opinion versus the factual appraisals. There's gonna be a substantial difference in the credibility there. So understood, you know, you're getting that opinion, but respectfully, we submit it's you know, this is based on substantial data. Second, this town's own conservation board actually preferred the initial location and approved that location because of that having less impact on the farm. So already by moving it once, it's undermining that consideration and then asking to move it again even further, and as Dave described, further disrupt the farmland in active agriculture it doesn't seem like it strikes the right balance. It's moved more than double the distance from the homes. There's gonna be screening around the base trees. It's a 77-acre parcel. You know, respectfully, we submit that this location is mitigating as best as it can, considering all the factors, including this town's own environmental and conservation boards.
Well, you know, that being said, I think we don't have the knowledge and necessarily the power to forego a tower in terms of, but we certainly have the power to determine where it's located. And I think this board is saying that we'd like to see the tower move closer, as long as it doesn't affect operations. You know, closer to the tree line in a less intrusive area. And that is our charge. And we have control over, and correct me if I'm wrong, as to where this location, this tower could be located on the property.
To some extent, well,
No, as long as it doesn't affect the operations of the tower itself, as well as.
yeah, I think that's accurate, Chuck. I would be concerned about impact on farm agriculture like operations. Tim, you said it wouldn't, that's if it's at 90-degree angles.
I don't
Well,
see,
that's something that we heard from a farmer on a different project just 2 weeks ago.
So I guess I would suggest maybe if you, there may be a more compelling reason not to move it. So either maybe request that the applicant explore putting it somewhere else, putting it further, or explaining to the reasons that they can't or shouldn't.
so with that thought, we haven't heard from a farmer that says this is a bad location or a good location. We've heard from neighbors that have said this is a bad location. We're suggesting a better location that we think is better, which actually, if I look at this map, there's already a road behind his tunnels that are already established behind those greenhouse tunnels. It's already there on the backside. They would be actually making a road through ag land anyways. So the ag land that goes to the road, it's all ag now. There's no road there now, no driving. It's only by the farm. So if they actually go into the corner, there'd be less disturbance in my mind.
And one other point is we're also subject to the landlord, so it's not just free reign to plot it wherever, right? So that those are negotiated with the landowner. It's been vetted for months. You know, we respectfully submitted an alternate location that works.
Why don't we do this? Why don't you pause the shot clock till the 25th? Get with your engineers and your client and maybe the owner and explore an alternate location as per the planning board's indicated desire, and come back next on the 25th. Either with a commitment to, you know, say, yeah, we're gonna try and redesign it to this locations, or some explanations why you can't or shouldn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, and yeah, I'm sure in coming up with this alternate, you talked to the property owner. And I guess it was because of the farm trail that you can utilize that, he can utilize it, but knowing that eventually he's going to leave the property because he's selling it. Again, I think it's a perfect opportunity to consider it, you know, replacement of the tower where we're thinking about as far as the.
If you want some clarification, you can help me out a little bit where you are thinking. Our access will likely stay on the same location that it is coming through here.
Sure.
I would like to know distance coming behind. I think you talked about behind the greenhouses. The tower is currently like 440 feet. Do we want to be like 200-ish feet?
I would
off
say
the property
140.
line?
140.
Your
It
minimum,
would be like over here.
whatever the setback is.
So one of the things that I'm also trying to do is keep the project area disturbance under an acre. If we go over an acre, we get a speed east permit with the New York State DEC. That means we have more stormwater management basins, which means we disturb even more land. So currently, our length of our driveway is about 1,200 feet, and it's maxed out. We're like 0.96 acres of disturbance. My thought being is if we come over here, I'm likely gonna need to come around, typically the turning radius for driveway to get tractor trailers, fire trucks, all that. 86 foot is the center line radius of the driveway. So I'm gonna have to come around, and I'm gonna have to come around, and my thought would be I'm not gonna get quite as far back off of County Route 8 because of the length of the driveway, because of the curves. So I'd likely be somewhere in this area. Now, that does also mean that we're getting closer to some residents that are on the opposite side of the road. We're also closer to the residents that's up over in this area.
But you have the tree line.
There is a tree line.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Looking at the aerial image, it looks like there might be a low area that runs through here up toward the wetland. So that would also have a potential impact. I'm not saying it's wetlands, but it might be a low area where drainage flows. Personally, I would not want to put the tower site in the low area.
Why would you put that as, the switchback S curve in your driveway? Why couldn't you just come around with a dog leg to the pad?
Say it again,
Come around
around
a
here,
dog leg.
position the tower behind the greenhouses in this area. I will be closer to the landowner's home, and I'll also be closer to the residents that are on the west side of County Route 8.
I'm not worried about the landowner's home.
Okay. So somewhere in this area behind the greenhouses
Mhm.
or closer to 145.
I think that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Closer to 145, just 145, 145 and point. And it's like your road would be about the same distance.
What I would try and do is get it around and try and follow this to get in. Again, this is in agriculture where the.
Be straight,
currently
be straight.
plowed.
It just,
Why wouldn't it be just straight?
just a
and
dog
stop?
leg, come around one curve, there you go.
No,
Well, not,
90 degree.
You mean from the existing proposed site?
You can do that.
Talking about coming back this way and doing a 90 this way. Help me.
For the road?
I'm sorry,
The road already runs, that lane runs.
well, the driveway
Well,
has to be
right.
10
So
feet.
it's probably going any, so it's like a flag lot.
But the pad has to be 144,
Yeah.
the tower.
Now, you're talking about the limits of your disturbance, so does that mean you're improving that entire laneway? Is that what you're counting in your
Limits of disturbance includes any area that is graded, drainage swales, grading associated with the driveway. In this instance, we do have landscaping around the proposed tower compound. Anything where the land is touched is considered a limit of disturbance.
Okay, and what you're saying is you're gonna have to do that for that entire existing lane?
We've taken that into consideration for the current location. I'll have to take that into consideration for any alternate location.
I think the existing lane, you said earlier, was just two.
It ruts,
Two
and so
ruts.
yes, that is not considered
Graded.
impervious. I can
Okay,
fix
so,
up here.
Chris.
If the lane was existing 6 inches of gravel or more.
Yeah.
And we upgraded it, it would not be considered disturbance because it's an existing gravel driveway. If it's less than 6 inches, it's not considered impervious. So in this instance, pretty much anything that we're doing is considered limited disturbance.
And you say
no
more than
road.
1
I don't think
acre
so.
requires you to do,
You have to go to the New York State DEC, have to get a speedies permit, have to have stormwater management facilities, which means stormwater basins, ponds, which would eat up even more area.
Well, I think to bring this thing to
Actually,
conclusion.
the board
Excuse
did
me.
the Cheshire plan, Blue Sky did Cheshire, right?
Yes.
It's a site where there were stormwater management basins,
Oh, yeah.
there were 4 or 5 of them, our office did it, I wasn't me, but I know there were 4 or 5 ponds associated along the driveway to pick up the runoff from that driveway to I want to detain the discharge.
I wouldn't call them ponds. I walked out the other day, there's no pond.
So
Like retain.
are you guys saying to the road from up to here
No,
and then out?
may I get out?
That far out.
Yeah, okay. They- You can do whatever you want.
I visited the site. There's no road here.
Correct.
The only road, Farmer's Road, is from like here out.
Right, you can see there's a lane that goes this way, a lane that goes this way, and then the lane that goes
So
that way.
you're gonna have to redo all this anyways.
Yeah,
My thought is just come here, use his road he has already, Farmer's Road. And then stop at 140, 145, whatever it is.
back there. So basically in this area,
There's 140.
it's, yes, that's 145 feet, I believe is the setback.
Then you're on.
Over this corner. So I do have the, maintain the 86-foot radius in the center line of the driveway to get tractor trailers and trucks in.
Yeah, so this right here is the only, this is part of his road that he has right now. You're basically, this is his road, and you're making all this anyway, so it's basically the same, if not less.
Okay, so if you could look into that in the coming 2 weeks and possibly come up with a alternate number 2. Certainly appreciate it.
So at this point, I want to be clear what we're looking for. It would be like a quick concept. Right? Maybe with separation distances from where the alternate number 2 tower location is to the residence.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm not asking for a full set of drawings.
Right.
You know, if we can come up with a location, then I think you can hardline it.
Right, so it would be like
Well-
go ahead.
Yeah, why don't you come up with a concept internally? I mean, it's possible Verizon says, no, we're not interested, please
Or the
vote on.
landowner may say no.
Or the landowner may say no. You may say, take a look and say it's not feasible.
Mhm.
Come back in 2 weeks, either with here's why we can't. Or won't. Or we'll get you some, we'll continue. Pause,
Details.
further pause the shot clock and get you a set of plans for, you know, this area. Does that make sense? Sure. Steve, does that make sense?
Yes.
Can you pause the shot clock until the
Makes
25th?
sense to the board?
Go ahead and say that for the record.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, then we'll continue the hearing till the 25th. Can I have a motion to that effect?
Wait, no,
Wait.
Steve, stay at the microphone. Chuck, he's gonna pause the shot clock real quick.
Oh, yeah, extending agree to extend the shot clock through the end of the meeting on the 25th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you doing it.
Motion to continue.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Have the residents been keeping up with all the alternate locations? And I want to make sure you stay in the loop. Okay, please, we'll try to keep in touch and stay in touch. Excuse me?
Yeah, we
Oh, okay,
communicate every week or so and she foils it. And
okay.
up to date stuff.
She's your contact. All right, very good. Thank you, everyone. All right.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Moving ahead, we have an application. 2024-137. Greg McMahon for property at 3729 County Route 16. It's a continued site plan seeking site plan approval from the board for an addition to a single-family home in the RLD. And it was subject to a couple of variances last month. And let me just confirm that you did get one variance, Greg?
Wonder,
For the 44-foot.
yes,
Okay, setback from the lake.
we eliminated the covered.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that's clear to everyone that you did water down the.
We removed some impervious.
Okay. So again, bring us up to date as to where we are with this thing.
Good evening, Greg McMahon from McMahon LaRue, 822 Holt Road, Webster, New York. This is an application for 3729 County Road 16 to add an approximate 420 square foot addition to an existing one-story home. As you mentioned, we did appear before the zoning board. Initially, we had requested a coverage and a setback variance, but by reduction of impervious, we eliminated that, and we did receive a setback from Canandaigua Lake. That variance was granted a couple weeks ago at the zoning board meeting. This is fairly straightforward. The addition we show is on the south side of the existing house. We are providing some stormwater mitigation for the increased impervious area. There was one comment or comments we saw from the I believe was the conservation board, had to do with landscaping. So we did consult with a landscaping consultant who works with the architect Design Works, and we added some landscaping directly in front of the proposed addition. It's of a variety that can be pruned and trimmed to maintain the visual from the addition, from the windows of the addition, but it'll provide some additional screening. I think that covers it. Pretty much summarizes what we're here for.
Great question, verify. You're taking out a wood deck, right? That's
Yeah.
out there.
Yep.
Also, this is off the kitchen. Is there a connection to the kitchen?
No,
So
this is a
Airbnb?
no, it's just an additional bedroom. The architect's not here tonight. We posed his questions to the architect, and they looked at several options due to the architecture of the house. They looked at several locations and considerations. And this is just they needed to get a second bedroom or not a second bedroom, but an additional bedroom. And this appeared to be the best location. It's not a year-round residence. This is a summer residence. The owners live in Atlanta, Georgia. And so I believe in their opinion, this was suitable for their needs.
So you're on septic here, right?
No, it's not
No.
sewer.
So the sewer hasn't been checked for this additional bedroom? Does it have the capacity? I mean, it's on sewer, you're on sewer.
It's on sewer,
My
yeah,
bad.
yeah. No,
That's the
the
wrong
lateral is sufficient.
I
The
see it.
water is sufficient. And it's not a state, it's not an apartment. There is no kitchen. It's strictly a bedroom.
400, that's a big bedroom.
With a bathroom. There is
Oh.
there is a bathroom, bedroom with a bathroom.
Okay, so now it's a bathroom.
Right.
So it's almost an Airbnb.
I can't speak to that.
Not yet.
Where is all the utility being located? You didn't put that on your plan.
The utilities.
Gas meter, electric meter, generator, none of that's on the plan.
Gas and electric will be relocated, working with RG&E. I would
I would say they're probably going to be on the west face of this. I can certainly consult with the architect and add them to the plan before we submit it for any signatures.
I would definitely,
There is an air conditioning
Yep.
unit there
Yep,
and the
generator.
gas electric meter. We acknowledge that they will need to be relocated.
are you gonna do any, I mean, right now, I would imagine you need to do some hardscape between that porch and that door. Cause there's nothing there but grass right now, if that door is leading toward that kitchen door.
I'll take a look at that. If that's what they're proposing, I can add it. It wouldn't throw us over the,
Yeah, I definitely,
wouldn't throw us over the coverage.
that's the only access is that door, and
Yes.
it's only. Yeah.
Greg, I've got a couple of questions about your stormwater management facility.
Mhm.
If you want to make go.
No, I'm just
First of all, have the soils been tested? Are they suitable for infiltration?
the soils have not been tested. They're based on the National Soil Survey. I believe they're a Class C soil. They do provide some infiltration. The reason we went with the ADS chambers in lieu of, in other locations, we've done dry wells, is this keeps us up above the mean high water elevation of the lake, so the chances of any surcharge. But they're designed, they weren't designed with infiltration, they were just designed. We didn't put infiltration into the calculations for them, so.
So just basically settle out in priority pollutants, is that?
It would settle out before it discharges into the lake. We're addressing more water quality with these and some reduction or slower discharge.
Okay, but I did notice that your invert elevation for your system is lower than your mean high water.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
so,
I mean,
there is the possibility. that
They're
you
under
get
100.
groundwater surcharge during.
Yeah, and we,
Mean high water.
right, we do run into that. Again, we try and we're using the smallest chambers available from ADS for this, but yeah, we've run into this. We've done a number of homes along the lake and had to deal with this issue.
The outfall. Was that an issue that I think it's something that MRB brought up? The outfall, that stormwater management system?
Well, we had shown some stone riprap on the beach side of that outfall. I removed it. I mean, that we would core through the wall and run the pipe through, but we're not proposing to do. I mean, the flow is, it's so minimal, it'll just discharge to the shoreline there. That'll prevent us from, or not prevent us, it'll enable us to do that without having to deal with the DEC. It just.
Is there any maintenance involved with the chamber?
They have, they typically have to be checked for, on a yearly basis for, sediment.
Okay. Is that something you inform the homeowner of, or you put it on the plan, or?
We can add it to the plan, but it is,
Let's see, a maintenance schedule.
Yeah,
on
I
the
think
plan.
we, with rain gardens and various mitigation measures, we've been asking for maintenance schedules.
Yeah, and you actually had notes on it after the first year, your inspection schedule.
yeah, we have a full sheet of ADS details and I'll check the notes. I just don't recall the specific notes, but I can also add a
You
note.
said
to
they
this.
were there.
Yeah, there.
I can add a note to the site plan for maintenance to refer them to that detail sheet.
Instead of the details.
Somehow after things get built, plans tend to sometimes disappear.
Yep, sure do. Yeah, with the ECB, I don't know, Mark, maybe you want to pick up on this, but I think most of their concerns.
Heavily tied to the setback to the lake, which was given, the landscape plan, just please make sure that it has native trees and shrubs, with no
And then we're,
invasives on it.
Yep.
For the tree roots from work that's happening, make sure that those areas are marked and protected, so that construction vehicles aren't crossing them. And then they asked that the site plan be updated to include the distance from the blue line stream for the new construction.
Yeah, what's with that stream? It is a blue line stream, I guess. It's a class C.
Let's see what it is, so it's,
yes,
And therefore has a setback.
it's 116 feet to the new construction area.
Yeah, it's certainly nowhere near the new construction, but
Nowhere near 100.
it's certainly near the house.
Yeah.
The north side of the house. Just show the setback from the stream, even though it doesn't affect the addition.
we'll note it on there.
Are we comfortable with the landscaping being proposed?
Yeah.
Reasonable. It's just a
Okay.
question of, that's why I mentioned, non-invasive.
I say that there was pretty good trees out there.
There are,
Yeah, there are.
yeah, if you look at the second time, they're showing the additions.
There were some photographs submitted as part of the shoreline guidelines that we addressed, and I did include some photos with it.
Yep. Yeah, thank you.
I remember when I went and looked at it, it was, here it is, it's pretty big trees, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's why they want to protect the roots.
Our code enforcement officer mentioned something about DEC approval for alteration of shoreline. Are you altering?
No, that's-
related to the riprap.
that was.
When you had the riprap
When we
there.
had the riprap on the lake side of that retaining wall.
Okay. Old news. MRB, no issues, Eric? County Planning Board, I think this was exempt regarding the site plan. Anything else? Anybody in the audience want to address the board regarding 3729 County Route 16 site plan application? No one? Okay. Are we ready to move on? Okay. We've got a type 2 seeker along with the site plan that refers to the variance that was received. So we can take a combination motion on those two issues.
And anyone could be making that motion by saying the words so moved.
So moved.
Second,
And looks like there's 10 conditions on the single stage site plan approval resolution.
yeah, I need to go, well,
I think he added.
added some in there. Here's-
What is it?
All right, can you tell me what those
The
were?
streamline, setback from the stream.
At on the site plan, at the setback from the blue line stream and the north end of the property.
Say that again. Lynn.
Add on the site plan, add the setback from the blue line stream
Okay,
and.
You want to note the condition to, maintenance schedule on the stormwater management facility. That's in.
add that to the site plan.
On the site plan,
Site plan.
on the site plan, it's in the detail
Let's
sheet.
make that as part of the conditions. so.
Applicant shall comply with the maintenance schedule.
Yep.
Mhm. Owner. Shall.
Yep.
Comply with. Maintenance schedule.
Okay, while he writes that, I think we got the direct, further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Yep. All righty, got my agenda here. Okay, now I'm gonna maybe get the other ones out of the way first, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Real quick. Let's do Anthony Venezia representing a site plan at 3518 Sandy Beach Drive.
No.
What? That was quick. Told you. Told you really quick. All right, move on to the
Let's
next.
talk about it first. How about that?
All right.
So the proposal in front of you tonight is for a tear down of the existing cottage and displacement of a new house in its place. There is a couple other things that go along with it with stormwater management and also reducing the size of the garage. It's on the other side of Sandy Beach Drive. So the goal is to tear down the house, replace it with the new house, a little bit of grading with some stormwater management trenches on the north side and the south side. And then also the corresponding utilities and upgrade. There was a couple of comments from MRB group regarding some of the stormwater management. If we can talk about it if you want to. There is that one section there to the east that's got that ponding water. When we were doing the survey, doing some of the site, looking through some of the different challenges on the site, there was some ponding water back there. There was a lot of bugs and a lot of just stuff back there. We just want to try to clean it up. There's a lot of drainage that does get just stuck there from probably when the garage was built and the other ones were built and just raised grade up and just left it. So one of those kind of caveats, try to get some of that water to migrate toward the lake where it can kind of dry out and it's maybe a little bit of usable space back there, or at least maintainable space. So we did end up getting two variances, the variance for the front setback and then also the building coverage. We were going for a height variance, but we did some adjustment to the site, just a little bit of grading around the site to get some positive drainage away from the basement. And then also some internal redesigning to bring some of the ceiling heights down to manageable for the needs of the client. If there's any questions, I could definitely answer.
Well, of course, I have a couple.
Yeah, I know you're gonna have questions.
It might be what MRB already brought up, but on your detail, there's no detail of your infiltration at all.
There is a detail. It's on the infiltration, on the top right corner, go up. Go to the on the top right corner of the actual site plan. So it's a trench that's dug, it's surrounded in geotextile with some stone and then a pref pipe that's in it. That'll hold water during a storm, and then there's some pop-up drains if it does get overwhelmed, that can mitigate flow.
Good. Can you add the length of them in there?
They are on there. If you look closer to the actual screen on it, if you zoom in, it'll give you the length and the size.
Thanks. You get looking at small here.
Yeah, it's if you zoom in, there should be some distances on it now. We can add them to these on the actual plan itself.
Let's see.
Yeah, about there's 40 some odd on the south and 70 on the.
Okay.
And we'll tie the downspouts into this.
Your height is below minimum now, because that was.
Yeah, it was at what, yeah, we were looking for a 3-foot variance, but with a little, just a slight amount of grading, but mostly we did some redesigning of the house on the internals to lower that. Some of the ceilings and the that's the, between the first floor and the second floor of the trusses.
Find that.
On the cover sheet, it shows the height.
Let's see. One of the neighbors that submitted a letter, I think the Marigolds. All I have noted here is off-street parking. Did they have a concern?
We have the garage, and right now that's what's kind of, there's the off-street parking is the garage. It's still gonna be a 2-car garage. And that's what we're just gonna use.
Yeah, I know you meet standard. I don't know if there's a.
They did have some, we've been going back and forth with the clients about maybe providing some grass pavers somewhere on the east side, just to give a little more support so we don't have any issues at all, but they're probably somewhere in front of
Yeah, but you didn't have a lot coverage issue. You
it.
had building coverage.
Yeah, but we're right at the lot coverage, so we're trying to stay under that.
Well,
And that's how it's used today. It's the same exact, there is no real driveway.
But they will be, most of the parking will be in the garage for the two.
But what are you planning to do?
Right now, it's probably gonna stay what it is. It's grass, but it's got kind of like a hard pack underneath it that stays up to conditions. I mean, if you go down there, you kind of see it. I mean, I park my truck down there. It's not a driveway. But I don't really want to call it coverage when it's really not, just to bump our numbers up.
The problem that I have with this is that we're not gonna solve the water. So this project isn't going to solve the water problem there. And that was part of the reason for suggesting originally that the proposed garage not be permitted. So I think you're not getting that out of there and running that water in the direction of the lake, because
Well, the proposed garage, we're not proposing a garage, we're shrinking the size of the existing garage.
I understand. But I think that whole area floods regularly, even in non events. So there's a lot of water that sits.
Yeah, there's some low lying areas there, definitely is.
Quite a bit, so I think.
I mean, what we're doing will help mitigate some things. I mean, we're not obviously clearing up the 15 other properties that have issues. But I mean, by trying to get some of that water to move across and get to the lake, we are helping a little bit.
I will say that water's always there every time I go back.
Yeah.
Look at those houses. It's always there.
Okay, Jim Fletcher, you want to make sure you just kept the separation between storm sewer and the water service. I think you know that. No comments from Kevin. Army Corps DEC not required. Lyndon Glass. How do we feel about shoreline?
We did attach a landscape plan to.
You have updated elevations, I didn't see those.
We didn't update the elevations. I know that a portion of the lakeside elevation was, the portion of the terrace was removed to be only about half. And actually, the designer of the house is here to speak to those effects.
So you got one tree coming out and.
The tree to the east is
We're
gonna come
going in.
out, and then the other ones, we're gonna do our best to protect them, those larger trees, and
Oh, they're existing.
those are existing. The two larger trees are existing, and two larger, we live with maple trees or oak trees. We're gonna try to keep those and kind of use those to anchor the house corners, and then add some low lying shrubs and things to the west side.
And those are the shrubs to the south.
Yeah, those are all new. There's really nothing else on the site other than those three large trees. There's some scrub brush on the southeast corner, but
Okay.
pretty much it's just those three large trees, but with the construction, we don't think we'll be able to save that larger maple in the northeast, but we are gonna plant a larger tree there. to
And
kind
then
of anchor that
the
corner.
perspective drawing. Rendering that you gave,
Mhm.
that was originally the scale to their desired height.
Yeah, but we brought that down 3 feet.
But is the rest of it maintaining that? So is the rest of the design staying?
So the other change that we made in order.
And your name, sir?
Sorry, Raymond LaChase.
Hi,
I'm
Raymond.
Hi, the architectural designer. The other change that we made in order to reduce our building and lot coverage was to remove the root structure on the patio that you see facing the lake. Other than that, in the height, things are generally staying the same in the design that you see.
That color palette doesn't.
Yes.
It's a lot of glass. Do you have a color for your facade that you picked out, siding?
Yeah, it's somewhat represented in the image that you see. It's a Hardy, James Hardy shingle, and it's sort of a muted, like grayish with a little bit of like green and yellow in it. It's very muted. It's not gonna stand out by any means.
It's not glossy.
No.
Do you know the approximate height that you're gonna have to raise it to get out of the floodplain?
About 2.5 feet. Yeah.
Is that what's shown there?
Yes, that's why you have, yeah, that's why you kind of see that. We did bring up the grade just slightly around it to get some positive drainage away from the house. But other than that, we do have to bring it up considerably. That was kind of when we started the first design. The house was designed with a 25 feet in mind. But then as soon as we came into it, did the survey and realized that we'd had to bring that first floor up as high as we did and not match current houses on the north and south. we ran into some issues, obviously, so we had to go back and reverse engineer some of the structure and site to get us where we wanted to be.
Perspective from the other side looks similar to this from the structure.
It's, so there is a single story piece, there, the second story sets back on the front. So kind of respecting the scale at the street there. And less glass, you know, we tried to prioritize the view out to the lake, obviously, it's what you're paying for, so.
Could we maybe ask for some shrubbery along the,
There is in the landscape plan, it's just not rendered into this.
Oh, okay.
So if you go back to the landscape plan, there is some shrubbery on the north and the south, we could add a little bit.
I'm saying along the front of the porch, on lakeside.
Yeah, we could probably add some, not a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll wrap it in to, you know, include the stairs and just kind of wrap it around.
You got that, Eric?
Stuff that, yep, we can do that.
Shrubbery in front of the lakeside porch.
Appreciate the sensitivity to the roadside as well, and what we're seeing now with a number of these is that 2.5 3-foot elevation change really does change the impact of the neighborhood that it goes in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was surprised when I drew it and kind of, you know, stepped back and saw how much of a difference it was, and it's very obvious.
Yeah, if you just drive down, you find a couple more of them that it's happening with, and it stands out.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, it stands up, I guess. Is the same thing happening with the garage on the other side?
The garage is saying it's the exact same.
At the same elevation.
It's up higher
Isn't that much?
from where that existing cottage is, yeah.
Okay. Anything else for it? I'll go out to the public. The public have any comments on or questions on this application? Specifically 3518 Sandy Beach. If not, does the board have any further deliberations? I don't see anything else here. You saw Mike Murphy's comments at all about the setback line shown properly?
Yeah, I noticed that. What is it?
It's under the code. I just made it.
I can take.
No, take a look, it's online, it's in the cloud. Tree stormwater mitigation. Okay, I think we're ready to move on. Again, we've got a type 2 application. Someone wants to make a motion to the effect to accept the type 2 seeker as well as the site plan. Subject to, and I'll make that motion while I'm saying it. Subject to how many conditions beyond the 12?
Just want to add a condition about the shrubs and so.
That's the only thing we added. Anything else?
I'll second that.
Okay, get a motion a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Hey, thanks, fellas.
Thank you.
Can you be quick, Anthony?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay. Let's do 3477, County Route 16.
Okay, so this project is a two-part project. There's a small, like a fire pit area at the northeast, and then on the south side is a putting chipping green. The putting and chipping green will be AstroTurf, and then there's like a enviro green sand that kind of gets packed around it, so it weights it down at all. It doesn't have plastics in it. It's an actual sand. That's, you know, the environmental review committee kind of asked about microplastics, and there's no like pebbles, and you know, some of those AstroTurfs have that plastic. It's actual sand in the base of it, so that'll weight it down. So that's on the south side, essentially the chipping green. It's you know, it's gonna be level with the ground. It's, you won't really see it. I mean, you might see the flagpole that'll be there at some point. On the northeast side is a small fire pit area. It's not gonna have a fire pit or gas run to it. It'll be more of like one of those solo stoves with some Adirondack chairs. There'll be a small single stack armor stone wall that kind of runs around the backside to hold back a little bit of grade, so we don't have to go in and regrade that whole site, and then at the same thing on the front side to hold in the material that will make up the base, which will be the same shale stone that they did when they remediated that wall back when they did the house project for the build. So,
This gets started and stopped.
yes, they got a stop work order for going over the disturbance. Yeah, so the north portion, the fire pit wouldn't have been over it or been under it. It was like 4 something. It was the patio and then, or not the patio, it was the large area that was cut out for the green area.
Yeah. A number of concerns that have come up, are making sure that there's a maintenance plan in place for the putting green.
Okay,
The idea is that it's intended to allow water to go through it.
Mhm.
So make sure that that continues to do that.
Yeah.
To make sure that it maintains pervious nature, so. ECB recommended that vegetation be added between the putting green and the lake in order to screen the view.
we can add that too. We can add it to the landscape.
Native species, of course.
Absolutely.
And then there's a whole bunch of conversation around the seating area.
Mhm.
From setbacks to the lake and also precedents that it begins to establish.
No, I understand that, and I mean, it's a small wall, it'll just be, like I said, it's not a stack 3 or 4 or 5 feet tall, it's not, it's not patio pavers, it's not a big area, it's just a couple Adirondack chairs and like I said, a portable fire pit. I'd like to note that
If they drag those up there from the beautiful patio, nobody would probably.
One of the notes that I want to talk about is like the shoreline, and during this project, we did remediate a big, large area. We took out probably 75 linear feet of concrete wall that and remediate the shoreline. They didn't put a wall and they didn't try to remediate put a new wall in front of it. They did their best to kind of get a little bit more natural shoreline. So they definitely have done that. There was a large wall. This is beyond outside of where that existing wall was that was taken out. We did put there are some images on one of the site plans that show like a before and after. Just so you can kind of see it from like an aerial perspective. There was another one uploaded, I think might have went to the variance section that had before and after, like during construction, kind of showing what was done.
And a reason for not getting it further away from you.
To try to not cut into and get it more lake level to keep it down and not up. And also stay in that existing area where they disturbed.
And just a question. I don't have much of a problem. I was out there the other day. The house is beautiful.
Really is.
Yeah. You show a drainage going right into the lake?
That's just a small surface area to grab anything that might just collect. and
Right.
then Not have.
But it's a direct shot.
Would be a direct shot.
Can't you just do any kind of infiltration just before it gets to the lake? The whole house has huge infiltrations.
Yeah.
Now this one's gonna go straight to the lake.
I mean, we could definitely take a look at maybe putting a dry well in instead of a straight shot with something that maybe has an overflow.
Small French drain or something.
Yeah, I can definitely-
something. That whole property has done well with.
Yeah, they've definitely done everything.
Yes, and then this seems like it's like, oh.
I mean,
Something.
the surface that it's gonna have some storage underneath it, so there will be. Storage underneath it, so water that does flow will have a kind of an area. This is just for any excess surface that flows out during like a larger event. That's kind of.
Yeah.
What the landscape
Personal.
architect's planning. Yeah, just the surface.
Yeah.
I mean, the seating area, I still look at, doesn't it?
There's one that's similar, just 3 houses north that was done, that you can see if you pick up Encore, it's gonna be very similar. It's a lot smaller than that one. But it definitely, like the character of the neighborhood, what we think you'll notice.
Can you provide a little information on the stabilization of the access drive?
So what that is the owner went and bought those giant 4x8 mats, the mats that are for construction equipment, and it's just stacked on it. So when just to not ruin the turf, so they'll drive across that, and then when it's done, they'll pull all those pads out and just make sure that the grass is still where it needs to be and fluffed up. So, but it's a temporary.
That's a theoretical, That's a temporary.
That is a temporary access, so we don't make more disturbance. So, and it says that on the note on the north side of it.
And I would say, I mean, those plates were up when I went and looked at the house.
Mhm.
And those rocks are out there now and all that gravel, so in the driveway, that grass is perfect, so.
Yeah, they, I mean, as long as they don't, as long as they're not sitting there for a few months, especially when they did it, they weren't in growing season. The goal is to try to get this done before growing season really hits and it won't really affect the grass. I mean, we're in the thaw now, so it probably will, but they went out and the owner bought a bunch of new mats, so. And those mats will be used and then, you know, do the north side, get that done, come down, do the green and then move out and hopefully like it was never there. Which it won't be there. There's not gonna be a driveway, so there's gonna be grass in the end. They're just temporary.
There's a number of comments from an officer that I don't know if you've seen them yet.
I did not look at it.
They're in process, it looks like, they'll lay out a set of drawings, make sure that his requests and comments are addressed.
Can do.
Sorry, what was that?
Looks like Murph started a drawing with a number of comments. It's still in draft form and out permit. It included, it says a floodplain development permit will be required. Right up regarding compliance with DEC wetland regulations, effective 1/1/25. Knowledge of associated plumbing running to the boathouse, they provide a parking location.
Yeah, I'm working on getting that information from the builder when they.
But he's put started marking it.
Yeah, I think he did send it to me and I did look at some of those comments, but like I said, I don't know if he finished them.
But we'll have that as a condition.
It's a condition number 4.
Yeah, him and I, we've been going back and forth with the DEC jurisdictional.
Just making sure.
Issues.
I knew that you'd get it, but just making sure.
That's what we've been doing.
Wow. He actually does show the pictures there as well of the comparison of.
Yeah, you can see on that one, that's the more updated one, so that's like what was there before and then after. Like I said, they did take out a giant chunk of wall.
There were some concerns about it being lit, and I think you testified at the zoning and.
Concerns of what?
No,
being lit.
there's no lighting.
There's no lighting proposed. for this,
Proposed,
no.
and Mr. Lupton submitted a letter concerned about making sure it's dark sky compliant. There's no lighting, that's about as dark as you can get. You did get the one variance
Correct, the
for
front
the
setback.
setbacks in the lake. Anything else? Anybody in the audience? Here, there, anywhere? If not, let's move on.
Wait, can I just ask, and I guess this doesn't pertain that much, but this is not access from Westlake Boulevard, is that
It's
accurate?
access from Route 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was,
Wanna make that clear.
when we did the original site plan, that's where the access came from. There was some
Oh.
Westlake Boulevard issues along with the crossing with large vehicles on those culverts that
Okay,
probably shouldn't be there anyway. So we came off the Westlake.
but there is a 60-foot right of way closer to the house than County Road 16.
Yeah, the Westlake Boulevard splits the two parcels. They're two separate parcels. So
Oh,
it fronts on Westlake Boulevard and they own both
wait,
sides.
is Westlake Boulevard a county road? Or
Westlake
town?
Boulevard is the
Private.
private drive that all those houses are all off
Got
of.
it,
But ends at that creek.
understood.
It ends,
It's just the
it ends at the creek. There's access and we maintained access during construction for the homeowners to walk through there.
Yeah.
So I know that was,
But the main access is through.
the main access is off of County
Out
Road
to
16.
Okay. All right, someone give me a motion. Bundle it with the seeker.
So moved.
Conditions being,
Can I hear the site, the conditions? Yes.
Condition A, accounts of the town code enforcement officer be addressed, the plans be signed, landscaping be added between the putting green and the lake. Maintenance plan for the putting green is to be provided, and no added to the plans that the maintenance plan is to be adhered to. And stabilization map for every removed violations of these two.
I'd like to see some sort of infiltration on the line going into the lake.
anything else?
Second, thank you.
Okay, got a motion second with those conditions, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, now we're ready to go back up to CPN 2024-143. Where have we heard that before? Reopen a hearing for Parkside Drive, affectionately known as Uptown Landing. Okay, Mark. Matt.
I don't know which one of us is all. Yeah. Can't be you.
Thank you.
A lot of this material was uploaded, but I just figured since we'll be taking back and forth to several things, and we can look at it in the hand.
Yeah.
Which document do you want?
Matt, which, what do you want put up? Anything in particular?
I think, if we could start with the graphic, which I think was uploaded today, which is the, perspective as you arrived along the streetscape. I know that was a request of the board.
Is there?
Yeah, that top one's titled Other, yep, right there would be great. So, Matt Tomlinson, Marathon Engineering, great to see everybody again. I know that there were several items at the last planning board meeting, and that's really what we tried to focus on as far as graphics presented, handouts that I have, and what I want to put in my presentation tonight. And then, of course, we can have a discussion. We've also been in communication with many staff members at the town. So I'll give an update on that, as well as utility owners, so that the board understands where we're at as we try to move towards hopefully a preliminary overall approval on the 25th, which is in a couple weeks. So I believe it was Mr. Schneider asked for, hey, what's this going to look like as you arrive at the site? So this view is from the other side of the road, but essentially looking north along Fire Hall Road. That's the southwest corner of the mixed use building. And I did bring a pointer here so that I could point instead of having you guys guess. Right in here would be across from Airline Drive, in between the apartment building and the corner of the mixed use for our new Uptown Landing Boulevard intersection. So I don't know if there were any questions on that specifically, but that's what it's going to look like.
No, that's great. That's sort of what I was hoping we do. But this will probably screen the view of any of the residential areas that are going to go up behind us.
The facade will be what's visible from the street. There are view corridors, obviously at the road intersections, and then some of the spots in between the apartment buildings, but generally there's going to be a streetscape created as part of this project along Fire Hall Road. That's correct. That's great. The handouts that I gave you, and I want to keep with the mixed use and with the apartment building. So there's two or excuse me, let me back up. The mechanical equipment and the screening for it was a question that was brought up specific to the apartments into the mixed use. So on the first handout, which is the black and white handout, we'll talk about the general condensers. For all the apartments in the space, we're proposing to use magic packs, which are a couple of the pictures in the handout that I gave you that has color on it. But this photo here shows the footprint of the typical building. The common areas will require residential style condenser units. They'll be ground mounted, about 30 inches in height to normal. The typical planting plan, as well as the proposed screening, which will be 4 feet in height, and we'll select the color that's closest to the building trim in order to match that. And if I gave anyone a non-colored version, I apologize. I'm not sure if I printed them all in color or not. So that talks about the screening. The magic pack handout that I gave, on the side, you'll see a series of grills, and that's really the venting, but it's built into the facade. The picture representative behind it in the alcoves, and it's a little tough to see because they blend in very well. Those grills are tucked into the balconies on the face, not pointing to the street. We won't be able to do that in every single balcony for each unit, but the intention is to conceal or tuck those grills as much as possible outside of the face. But we think that that's a really good solution. This picture is actually from a project
in Pittsburgh, that Reedman did on, off from, the Oak Hill intersection there, Kilburn Hall. This same system was used there, so that is a real life installation photo, there. House, single family home, townhouse and building heights. We did submit on cloud permit with our last update a week ago. Those information on all of the cut sheets. I did bring one hard copy of that with me if there were any specific questions, but generally on that packet for each one that was submitted for the board's consideration, there's a building height to ridge elevation for each of those styles that's been submitted. So I think that answers those questions. We did also submit full and updated checklists, and I apologize for the form-based checklist being missing the last time around. It was in the incentive zoning, but we supplemented that, updated it for all the information that we provided you folks. I subsequent to that and or in the interim since the last time we were here, myself and Steve, who's the project architect, went and sat down with Mike Murphy, walked through all of the items that he had opened from a question standpoint, our responses to him. He's satisfied with all of the fire lane access routes. We have some further coordination as we get into building permit for fire department connections, standpipe locations, those kind of things. But generally, he's satisfied with our responses and the backup documentation that we've provided as well.
Excuse me, Matt, who was
Yes.
that again? Was that from the city?
We sat down with
Oh,
Mike.
Mike, I thought
Yes,
you-
but we
okay.
reviewed the fire department comments and all of the worksheets that we provided with fire lane distances, hydrant locations, all those kind of things.
Have you met with the city?
We have not met with them individually. That's been coordinated through Mike.
Okay.
The majority of the city fire department's comments were related to Knox boxes, standpipes, fire department locations, those kind of things that are really going to be building permit items, not necessarily site plan items.
Mike worked with the meet with the city fire chief about this.
Yeah, without us there, but we did discuss those items with them.
They discuss hydrant location.
Yep. Yep. So checklists again have been updated. So with those checklists, there are a couple of items that we also uploaded requesting waivers, at least at preliminary. Building mounted lighting, for example, being one of them. We're still working through some selections on those. We'd like to review those with the board at final. Fully understanding that they need to be dark sky compliant with code. We have no issue with that. Of course, being a condition, but that's on the list of waivers. We did submit the waiver request forms as well as a fuller response letter to Sarah and Mike's comments. So I'm happy to answer questions on those or get into more detail there. Visuals checklist, utilities and reviewers. So we've also been making the rounds following up on our utility submittals because I know that that's not of concern to the board, but just making sure that there aren't substantive changes that are going to be requested. We've been coordinating with Tim McElligott and Jack Braun. I know there's some correspondence or email correspondence with Mike Murphy, touching base with them as well as it relates to the sanitary review. It's my understanding that Ontario County's reached out and through a conversation with us, but also directly to discuss review of downstream capacities with MRB. Mr. Holtaling, I believe, emailed about that earlier today. Nothing has been raised as a concern. We've received comment letters from New York State Health Department with some minor comments, some forms that they requested to be updated, and we've received comments from Farmington Water. I will note that one of the comments from Farmington Water reopened the request for water main connection along Parkside Drive, which was requested at time of the incentive zoning and not selected as an incentive. So that's how we're going to answer that comment again. But other than that, most of them were just technical details related to sampling taps, hydrant spacing, where they want their check valves to be, those kind of things. So from a utility standpoint, other than not having received the sanitary letter from Ontario County yet, but anticipating that by the end of this week based on the correspondence, we don't believe that there's any showstoppers out there from an outside utility agency that the board will have to be concerned with if considering preliminary approval at the next meeting. We've also done a little bit of study. I know there was talk about the gun range, the locations, what that sound gonna be like. So we just took a look around at whether or not there'd been some studies as it related to gun ranges proximate to residential. One of the studies that we found was from Boise County, which I believe is out in Idaho. And it was more related, or the studies are more related to new ranges going in proximate, not necessarily building new residential close to it. But generally speaking, 300 to 500 meters away, it was done in metric. 300 to 500 meters away, we're just under 1,500 feet from the range south of Emerson Road. And my understanding, and I'm sure I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, is that the range fires towards the north. So not only are we behind the range, the general or typical wind direction is not directed at us from the range. All of those factors seem to really weigh into the study and the results, but generally 65 to 70 decibels is a pretty steady without screening at the range from a distance of 300 to 500 meters. There's really not a lot of reduction because of the suddenness or loudness of the noise. So planting a few trees, some screening, again, we want to leave that up to the individual homeowners. Supplementing that buffer really would not appear to provide any type of reduction, further reduction in noise than the distance provides as of now. I wanted to just point to a couple things on the site plans because I believe that they were specific comments. So if we could get those up. One of those, and the main one that I believe Mr. Nadler had a comment on, was as it related to lot ownership of the parcels of land that we're going to have the stormwater management facilities and some of the trail connections to that. If we go to sheet 10 in this PDF, which is a subdivision map. Take one more. We've added those notes at each of the parcels that have the stormwater management facilities on them as it relates to requiring, you may have to zoom in to be able to read that versus out.
Is that a new plan?
We uploaded the new plan set to Cloud Commit on 3/4 along with all the other supporting documentation. We did not drop off more hard copies. I wasn't sure how much paper you needed. That was the correct plan. So we've added a note, and maybe we could blow it up a little bit more and make sure that the language satisfies the comment. Right here.
Parcel 053 shall be owned and maintained by the property owner of lot 600
Perpetuity, yeah.
in
Which is the
perpetuity.
mixed use. Parcel. So that note, it replicates on each of the open space lots on the subdivision plat.
After the word perpetuity, and this can be as a condition, we're gonna add word as evidence in the deed restriction for lot 400.
Sure.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But that could be, that's a condition, we don't need to. say
Yeah, and we can nail down the exact language on there. So that was one comment, and then I just want to draw the board's attention to the landscaping plans. If they hadn't had a chance to look at them, we did add the detail in the handout that I gave you to the sheets themselves, but there's also legends on those plans that include plant material. I know Environmental Conservation Board wants to look at that again as part of final, which we're happy to do, obviously, but that detail has been added. Those are the main takeaway points from the last meeting in discussion with the board that I had made note of to provide additional information on. That same heights of building, articulation and stepping back of building detail was also included in the mixed use and townhome plans and elevations that we uploaded. Happy to step through those, or Steve can if there's additional question there. But other than obviously a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross at final, I think we've addressed what the board raised as questions or concerns as part of preliminary.
Sarah, did you have any, I think it might make sense to have Sarah start. Especially since your chair just vacated and
Now I'm taking over.
And I spoke up before Bob had a chance to. Sarah, did you have any things that you think need to be addressed?
I
Oh.
had given them a letter and I did see the response and they either answered the question or for some of the things that were specific to like code requirements or checklist items, they either answered it or submitted a waiver of the last two planning board for, I think, yeah, you either answered it or.
Yeah,
waiver for
there's a
it.
couple items, like the trail crossing or mid-block crossing, I should say,
Yeah.
where we've requested a waiver. For things like building mounted lighting, we are going to provide that detail. We just asked for a waiver from preliminary to move it to final. So I think we've captured everything that was outstanding or open, I should say.
And. You know, I mean, I've had conversations with MRB and in the office, you know, our form-based code is.
Special.
Some of the things in form-based code seem like they may be more geared towards site plan and not subdivision, so it doesn't mesh. Perfectly with our checklist items, and so, you know, there have been ongoing conversations.
I would
about how to
concur
deal
with that statement.
It's your intention to come back with your final application for subdivision? When is the site plan application for the apartment buildings?
It's concurrent site plan and subdivision.
Is that been
section
submitted?
one.
What they submitted was what I understood to be final for section one, final site plan and subdivision.
Okay, sorry, we were talking about final and I just assumed it was
And
final
I,
subdivision.
and I mean,
Okay.
was that your intention?
It is,
That's
yes.
what it-
And it's, the information's in there, we have some target dates coming up in the next few days based on Mr. Falbo's email with all of the criteria that we need to make sure that we submit for you folks. But yes, that is the intention. I believe we've got a fee that's been calculated based on that now that we need to take care of. To
we
make
do-
sure that we complete the application and also, I don't have that much cash on it, but to complete the application, but also hold our spot hopefully for PRC coming up as well as upcoming.
Yeah, and we did tentatively add it to PRC for next Monday.
And that time frame makes sense to me, in terms of progression of applications.
Chuck, we got it all figured out.
Take a vote.
Not yet.
Sarah, I don't know, did you bring up anything that you have regarding? the
Yeah,
review, or that's what you
I
were
just
talking about?
mentioned that, you know, yeah, we've been back and forth with you know, my questions or comments and they addressed it. And for the items that they had a question or didn't agree, they requested a waiver from you guys on, and for everything else, either answered my questions or fixed the plans, so.
And I can't stress enough, staying in contact with Jim Fletcher. Make sure, you know, he's comfortable with what's laid out, because he's the one that's got to inherit and take care of this.
Yeah.
So. And I know Jim's doing a review, and I guess he's sort of halfway through it. MRB, you did your review of the recent plans, right?
We haven't submitted a revised letter based on the March 4th plans. We provided a letter on the iteration prior to that, and then we submitted our letter basically coinciding when they submitted the revised plans. But our previous letter, most of that stuff was either stuff to be provided in final. Our previous comments as it relates to the SWIP, we were talking to that and felt comfortable if they submitted a preliminary overall SWIP as part of that final application. So not necessarily having provided for the preliminary approval. And then the remainder of our comments were really just pointing out different sections that really for the planning board more to consider, you know, the adequacy of community facilities, for pedestrian permeability, and all of that stuff that just didn't want the planning board to overlook, I guess, but that it was for your purview, not and more subjective, not necessarily an objective standard. You know. And then as far as the lighting goes, it might make sense, I guess, there's a couple areas where there's like no lighting and kind of like areas where there's sidewalks. It's right in front of the mixed use building, or which I assume that there's gonna be building mounted lights there, but them not being shown, if there can be any sort of notation, just say like the final details or the fixture to be proposed as part of final. Just so the planning board knows that there will be some proposed there, that this won't be left entirely in the dark, but that these details will be provided. As part of final, and then only one other thing I saw when looking at it today. Did you pull up the site plan for like phase one?
Just to touch on the lighting, that is a comment from Mr. Murphy that we talked about with him relative to sidewalk connection to dedicated roads and having to have a level of illumination on them, so that will be included in final.
Actually,
But we can add a note to that, that's no problem.
Are you contemplating building mounted signs? Are building mounted lights?
There'll be egress lighting at every door, just like
Okay.
normal, and some
This-
building
this-
mounted lighting.
This one?
Yeah, this.
C11.
Yeah, so just looking at like the form-based code checklist and requirements that basically parking areas are to have pedestrian access to whatever space. The parking area here and the access to this commercial space, the main entrances are on this side, right? Can there be a sidewalk or something like that so that people assume they're gonna park here for that? to go
Yeah, that's no
around?
problem.
That was,
Also on that, going through form-based code, it talks about landscaping within those parking areas.
Yeah, so we are trying to, we had originally contemplated putting the community building within the first floor of that mixed use versus a standalone building close to the apartments. So we had a placeholder in the area Eric was just pointing to, potentially for pool, pedestrian connectivity, some other amenities, which we're moving to the other side where the community building is proposed, which I'm sorry, is maybe my pointer's didn't work, maybe it isn't, is right here. So we will add that sidewalk back in, and we're taking a look at some landscaping on the backside of that as well.
Then, do you know the ratio of amenity space to the square footage of the form-based code? You know the percentages?
On the proposed plan, I do not. I will say that the incentive zoning offered a lot of amenities not captured within the project limits. How that plays into the form-based code versus relief from the requirements, I'm not 100% sure.
It states that it's supposed to be 5% of the square footage of the form-based code space.
Okay,
It's supposed to be amenity space that is also accessible to the community in general. So not just, I guess that means publicly accessible. So that I caught that one for the first time this time around. So it'd be good to know what that percentage of square footage of amenity space would be related to the form-based code areas. Chuck,
Well, and I guess if I were you, when you give your response, that I would read the section Mark's looking at and see if it says.
Shall or should.
On site. Because you are providing extensive amenity space. Immediately adjacent to the site. That may very well comply with.
Sure.
Incentive zoning code.
yeah,
With the form-based code.
if it's 5%, and I know the total site is not within the form-based code district, which we found afterwards, so call it 70 acres. 5% would be 3.5 acres. We have more than that in the open space that will remain open space within, so I'm sure that we meet the numbers, but I have to read it specifically to be able to answer.
understood. Chuck started to ask the question, you shifted over to lighting. Planned signage, is there any planned signage?
We show a monument sign at each roadway intersection. There has not been discussion about any type of building mounted signage that would be submitted under separate cover. I do a lot of stuff, but signage I stay away from.
Is this gonna be, is there gonna be monument signs declaring this to be Uptown Landing and then
It's the
individual signs for
intention,
the
they need
apartments?
this development, basically branding signage on the monument signs.
And then, apartment buildings separate, are they going to be operated jointly?
That's the intention, is my understanding. All the
Uptown
apartments would stay under
Landing
current
apartments
ownership.
this way.
Yeah.
In one of the site plan drawings, I think it was, I was looking at, it looked like there's a sidewalk running along Fire Hall Road?
That's correct.
But I didn't see it labeled as that. It looked like the drawing was there. I just didn't see it labeled as that. I wanted to make sure that that was the intent.
Okay, yeah, we can take a look at the labeling, but yes, the perimeter roadways along our project frontage have sidewalks along the entirety of them.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
Is there anything that's gonna be labeled, considered a service area for any of the?
No, the smaller, commercial space, if you will, it'll be built in or operated, no tenant known, so, but the intention would just be to be serviced out of the rear parking lot screen down the building, yeah.
Bicycle parking is a requirement.
Yep. Yeah, so we have 30-something spaces required, and we show them essentially at each of the apartments mixed use, we got about 40 or 50 across the site.
I just couldn't find them.
Yeah.
That noted there.
There's a lot on paper.
Yeah, so
The bank-
actually, we have it on the wall that I handed out, maybe that's a little easier.
If you say it's there, I trust that it's there.
It is.
Because I have plenty of time to find it later. Are you doing any EV parking?
That hasn't been decided. The potential for EV parking is definitely, I'm sure, a desire of apartments. However, we have garages at each, so there could be provided internal to the building. We haven't talked about publicly available or not. Not on the handout that I gave you, on the opposite side of the sidewalk, there's a square with some dashes in it, or a rectangle with some dashes. That's the bike parking. So that's typical near the entrance for each of the apartment buildings.
There is a lot of verbiage in the code related to access, walkable access to those spaces and everything else. So just pay attention to that. when you get
Yes.
into the plan.
Thank you for providing the ITE parking justification.
Oh, yes, I apologize. I
Yeah.
skipped that for one of the takeaways. But yeah, I think that we're in excess of the standard, and our number on our plan was not accurate, so it was a good exercise to go through and make sure we had all the garage spaces captured as part of that too.
I know we're not into the building yet. Has there been thought related to deliveries? Like Amazon?
I believe we're talking about central mailroom or package room. I don't know that we've gotten past that decision or not.
I just noticed that those vehicles, Amazon, UPS, FedEx, seem to take up a lot of parking area during the day. I'm always amazed at how small the parking requirements are for.
They normally double park everyone just. Back up.
Yeah.
Oh, just in general.
I'm just here for a minute.
They count per unit, counts per bedroom.
Yeah.
The Ryan models, they were all two-car garages that at least we saw. Is that the intent?
There are a couple of options, and I apologize because I tucked it in my pile of paper somewhere. I believe that several of them have an option for a third bay to go on. The townhouses are single car garage.
No, I was thinking to go the other way. Just to go to one car.
To go to one car, I believe the two
Again,
cars
just
is
Trying
standard, yeah.
to, trying to make these things affordable as possible. I think that's one thing we're trying to accomplish, both sustainability and affordability, and anything we can do in that regard would be appreciated. So.
I
maybe
have
Ryan
a
would-
feeling if it's like my garage, half will be full of stuff and there'll be one car in it. You know,
Well, just answer the cost, that's.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I got a question for Sarah. Any restrictions on hose hangers and hanging hose? I'm looking at these balconies and concerned that.
Oh, you mean hanging over the balcony?
The townhouse.
Turn their
Put clothes trees out there to dry their clothes.
The management company won't.
Et cetera.
The tenants do
Is
that.
that something that would be restricted?
It's restricted, yes, yeah.
Excellent.
No hanging sheets or anything like that.
Well.
Good. No hanging skivvies over the.
Really?
Yeah. That's why.
Yes, yeah.
And if someone wants to put up a clothes hanger in the backyard of a single family home, they can.
They
Don't restrict.
Don't really want to see that on fire.
They could do it in their front yard.
It's part of the sustainability. Don't use the dryer.
You good?
Can I ask one question about the mixed use building? In my comment letter, I noted the transparency requirement. Is that?
Yeah, that was just to delineate the area that's garage behind it. That is opaque or transparent, excuse me, not opaque. And just was to delineate the area of the garage behind, but that is all glass over the front.
All right.
Speaking of balconies and hanging, none of your balconies are overhanging. They're all.
That's correct. Yeah, we did talk about that with Mr. Murphy when we met, and he was looking through the code and felt that we were in compliance.
Yeah, it's in your checklist. Okay, so,
I'm not done yet.
oh.
I've just been waiting for you.
How about it?
First, I appreciate the paper copies. I just like looking at paper. Two, do you plan on doing a construction schedule? Because I haven't seen that.
Yes, when you say construction schedule, do you mean the sequence of construction like is on our erosion control and everything else?
So
Or
in the sequence of events that's happening in each phase, like today, I'm gonna do demo, whatever the construction process that's gonna happen during this phase, which goes to my next question, or the plans, can they be, it would be much more efficient if the plans showed each phase on each page, where each sheet now counteract or counter or intertwines each phase. So in other words, and you show a sheet with phase one, a sheet with phase two.
the final section 1 plans will have only section 1 information on it.
Okay, next question. I walked this site the other day. It's big.
100
Yeah.
acres roughly.
Yeah.
It was a good walk. The question I have mainly goes toward the neighborhood questions about buffering to the north. In your demo plans, it just says demo to a certain area, clearing area. It doesn't say, you said the other day 20 feet. Nowhere on the plan does it show 20 feet. My fear is what's gonna happen, what happened out on the other property that we had started, somebody had started, didn't finish, clear cut. Are you going to only demo by phase, which is I hope you do, and then I hope you will mark this 20-foot at least buffer so that it doesn't go straight to your line.
Yeah.
And clear it out.
Yeah, so let me answer a couple questions on the phasing. So there, on our site plans, there is a very clear sequence of construction that's required by our SWIP, by DEC, by MRB reviewers, your SWIP inspectors here at the town, which step by step, go in and put your silt fence in. Then you can construct your stabilized construction entrance, then you can strip your topsoil. So there is a very clear order that those steps need to go in. All the way through stabilization of the site. So that's start to finish from a site perspective. Does not necessarily contemplate the step-by-step of building the buildings, but again, this is the site package. As part of that, relative, the perimeter erosion control, site security, if it's needed, out towards the streets, that kind of thing is required to be put in first. Typically, what happens is when we do our pre-construction meeting with the town, with staff, with MRB, we talk about staking out the clearing limits where those need to go to. So from a mass earthwork site development standpoint, those will be clearly delineated in the field before the contractor starts clearing and stripping topsoil for each phase specifically.
So everywhere you've shown to this line, but you've never shown on the plan that it's at least a 20-foot buffer.
Okay.
Okay, I'm because I've learned the hard way that if it's not on this plan, it's not.
Sure, we can add a dimension to that. That's no problem.
Disturbance.
But the limit is there, but there's no delineation to
Not
exactly
what it is.
what it is.
Understood. Yeah, we
And-
do have the limited disturbance on our grading plans, yeah.
And from, if I get it wrong, help me out, east to west, it goes narrower toward the left side, top north side of it.
The
Is there a reason for
existing
that?
depth of the tree.
Yeah.
Tree line, if you will. It gets narrower as it goes left to right. Let me
Fewer
just
trees.
take a look at the
There is
plan
fewer
so that I
trees.
can.
If you get closer to front of them.
If you're looking at this plan here,
Yeah.
this is the existing tree line.
Right.
This is the proposed clearing limit, and as we get closer to Fire Hall Road, that's where our stormwater management facility is, and we need to clear a little bit more. Number one, it's not a residence or a building, so not as much concern from a buffering at the rear standpoint, and number two, just to make room for the volume of stormwater that we have coming there.
And realization it's mainly brush.
Yeah,
On
there's
that
not a
side.
lot of solid
Mainly,
trees there.
mainly your trees are on the other side.
Correct, yeah.
Do you agree then that you're only gonna demo phase one at once, phase one, but not the whole site?
Yes, with the exception of, I anticipate that a staging area, which would be closer to Parkside for, I'll call it semi-permanent staging area, materials, equipment, storage, that kind of thing. That'll be out of the way of section one, hopefully section 2 and 3, so it can be used over the course of the development. And then we are still working on some of the earthwork balance exercise. A lot of times, especially in this case where we're doing almost all of our stormwater management facilities here in the first section, I do anticipate we'll have some excess material that'll be stockpiled on future sections for placement.
Yep.
So I wouldn't anticipate those stockpiles would push up towards the north boundary that would require that clearing, but we will have to clear into future sections for that material management as part of this.
I just don't want to see a total strip.
Yeah, we
Before-
don't want to open up 100 acres at once
No,
either. That'll be quite the SWIP inspection.
We've kind of seen that go the wrong way.
The first section is quite large. It's
It is.
about 35 acres, so it's a little over a third in total of
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
Just give me a second here. I'm going off the plans that were paper copied to me.
Okay.
So, if it's changed, bear with me then. Sheet, C 1.0. It doesn't show the easement very well between 8 and 9. And I just looked at your slide 10, which showed the ownership there, doesn't show the same on lots 8 and 9.
Yep, if we can go to sheet C 1.1, that might help because we did adjust the match lines to be able to show that all on one sheet since we had that discussion. And if we want to zoom in, right in this area.
I'm sorry, I can't. see.
Oh, sorry. Bottom left of this sheet.
Bottom left.
Yep. Yeah, so we call the proposed trail connection easement, bracketing it, and showed the entirety of it on there, and also some dimensions were added just to help place those trails through that area.
And then the ownership is gonna be the same as this other statement?
That easement will be granted to the lot 600, but there'll be an actual easement document filed in the clerk's office memorializing that. We did take a look at shifting the property lines, but we ran into issues with the minimum lot widths through there, so we're gonna do an easement instead.
Okay. And that will be a path, just like any other path you make
It's
throughout?
gonna be, yep, same asphalt path, 6 foot wide as we're doing throughout everywhere else that we're doing a trail.
Any thought, I didn't see any thoughts of landscaping to border?
Haven't
those
looked at it
traffic?
specifically, but given that it is in the side yard, we will buffer that.
That would be a great idea. And on landscaping, really quick, I noticed your calipers read 2 inches to 2.5 inches, where our code says 2.5.
Okay.
Okay.
That might be the difference between a decorative tree versus a shade tree, well, I'll have to. take a
It
look
says
at that.
2 inches to 2.5 inches on.
Oh, for the
Oh.
individual species on our
Yes.
plan, okay,
Yeah.
got it, yep.
And I'm sure you're working on this. I did, and maybe I missed it. Please tell me if I didn't. Detail sheets on what the dumpster enclosure is gonna look like.
I know we put specific locations on
Yeah.
there, but we're going to clad those with, and I thought that made this set, but maybe not. We're gonna clad that with the brick material or masonry material that
Just a
matches
quick
the,
detail on that.
Yep.
Shown.
no problem.
Do you have you said there was gonna be a standard mailbox. Is there a detail on the mailbox for single family?
I don't have one, but I'm sure we can provide one for fine.
And I didn't see, I saw the road details, but I didn't see a path detail. How they're gonna be built according to our details that are in our code.
Okay.
Yeah, that was actually in the site design criteria 2.9, tree placing 2.2.5.
Thought you said the trails were 6 foot wide.
6 foot.
6 foot
Asphalt?
wide asphalt paved, yep. Yeah, and I think we have that called out or denoted in our callouts, but maybe not a specific detail for us, so we can definitely, yep.
Yeah, I may have missed it, but. Yeah, just to reiterate, I'm just nervous that more cutting will be done than supposed to have done.
They're not, so they'll only have approval for what your final approval.
I understand that. That's. I
For,
understand.
per phase.
Yeah.
Getting that up front.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Getting it
Make sure it's clear.
Well, we can add some notes that clearing limits must be staked out prior to. And put a dimension for the property line to memorialize it on the plans of what they're supposed to be clearing.
Yeah.
So. To put Bob's mind at ease, are your clearing limits for phase one? Right about the line of phase one?
With the exception of where material needs to be placed, excess generated by phase one, yes.
And you'll show that on your phase one
Correct.
final site plan.
Correct. Yep. And I will say that other than the first 10 or 11 single family homes along that north line in phase one, because we're only going to the turnaround that's delineated right there. Everything else is kind of inboard from a section 1 standpoint. And I wouldn't anticipate clearing anything else along that north line until we get into the phase that's up there. Everything south of there, for the most part, is just meadow. I mean, a couple years ago, that was cut and disc for archaeological studies and different things, so that really is not a substantial brush tree area at all, so.
Nope, totally agree. No brush.
Real quick, Bob, well, you have that plan up the Stub Street. I think you mentioned it last meeting. It's to be, well, right away is to be created. And it's gonna be paved or paved to a portion. Then I heard something about a hammerhead, and I don't think you wanna put a hammerhead.
So we'll be required to have a temporary turnaround. That'll be a discussion item with Mr. Fletcher as we go to final. Our desire would be to build the gutter straight through here. And just have this as temporary turnaround for part of section 1 will end right here. With the right of way.
Okay,
So emergency vehicles, plows can get in, get out, turn around. And then when we complete this loop, we would remove the asphalt and just leave the gutter straight through. That would be these people's
But
extra lawns.
it's not a hammerhead on the Stub Street itself. No. To the north, up by the property.
No,
No,
Just
okay.
be here at the end
Yep,
of
yep,
phase
temporary.
one of that. Yeah,
For
temporary.
the main drive.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
And if we want to place some boulders there, we can do whatever.
Okay, well, it's
Whatever
again,
Jim would like to see.
that's a phase 1.
Yeah, we
Detail.
don't want boulders.
Okay, anybody have anything else? Sir, do you have anything to add tonight?
No, good. I'm just glad
You're
you're
good?
here. I heard you just put in an application for alternate.
No cell towers planned on this site, at least not yet.
Not yet.
All right, so
Just
we've got some ongoing reviews from staff. I guess Sarah's still working on her review. Code's still working on their review. MRB's still working on their review. Jim Fletcher, you're going to work with him, make sure he's happy. And then based on John's schedule, we're gonna reconvene on the 25th. Talk preliminary overhaul and do an introduction, I guess, of phase one, right?
And you're not gonna give us any new material on later than. Nothing's coming in on the 24th or 5th.
No, they've been good a week before.
all I've put up after the deadlines is
Pretty picture.
pretty pictures for you guys. That's right. So just so the board is aware and we can talk specifics, following along with the schedule, and appearing at PRC, final section 1. Plans and additional information, fee paid needs to be done by, end of day on the 14th, which is this Friday. Be at PRC on the 17th. Technically, I suppose until the 18th, we could submit additional material, but I don't anticipate anything new, or improved from that standpoint. And then you wouldn't be contemplating approval of final section 1 on the 25th. That would just be the introductory, what's there, is there anything? So if there's hard copies desired of that set that we upload for section 1 on the 14th, we'd be happy to bring those to PRC for folks if that works.
I won't.
Okay,
I
we
would
can bring
like
a couple, that's fine.
11 by 17. Or 24 and a half by 13.
17, you won't be able to read.
Sarah, are you gonna upload everything pretty much at once if you're doing a new submission?
On the 14th, yeah, so we already started a final submission with material. We're going to supplement that with all of the updated information that we've been preparing.
It might be useful, I think Bob didn't believe they were going to meet the deadline, so he didn't chat. And I didn't either. It might be useful to just, when it hits, send out a note to the group by email, say there's, here's the revised stuff. I believe you were gonna do it, I just didn't check. He didn't believe you were gonna hit that deadline.
Is the thought or desire of the planning board that some of the things talked about tonight would be addressed on the plans prior to the meeting on the 25th? And so I've taken some rough notes here. Calculation of amenity space, the sidewalk connecting. Construction schedule, delineation of the buffer, landscaping right on the trail, all these different things we talked about tonight. Again, is the expectation for the planning board, these things will be addressed on the plans prior, and then obviously your revision on that 18th prior to the planning board's meeting on the plan.
Let's start with the premise that you'd like to see as much of it as you can. Is there anything that you'll have a problem with not appearing on the revised plans?
No, but I would say prioritize phase 1 changes of anything, making sure that was perfect.
If I can just run through the list I have, maybe match it up to Eric's, because what I heard, I don't think is a very heavy lift for us to do so. Sidewalk connection at the mixed use building, buffering of the trail between lots 8 and 9. Calculation of amenity space as it relates to the code, details for dumpster, a couple of the other things that we talked about, and adding definition to the clearing limits, and obviously on the final section 1 where those limits of stockpile or other material may appear. Sequence of construction, again, I think we have that already on our grading and erosion control plans.
And the general note sheet.
Yeah,
What sheet?
general
Like
notes.
the first couple sheets.
Yeah, under erosion control, there's a sequence portion on there. That was the notes that I had. If I missed anything that you're looking for on the plans, just let me know. I can make sure I add that as well.
Building not lighting, just just basically a note of some of the photos, and then we get the actual pictures we provided by final. Label of sidewalk along Fire Hall Road. You mentioned the site buffer, the tree planting detail. I think you also mentioned the variance, but anything else? We got on the list.
Cool. John, there's nothing, this doesn't have to go back to town board. Okay, I didn't see it in your email, so. On the town board. All right, so we push on. All right, so I guess anybody else in the public, since this is public hearing?
Oh, I think it's one of them that you planning on just having a response letter to us. I know like a lot of that stuff will just be acknowledged right now. It's provided as part of file, things like that.
Yeah, I think that we have responded in writing to Sarah and Mike's comments. The water health department, sewer, if we get them, and response to your guys' latest will be in this next iteration. Okay. Yeah.
Hey, Sarah, do we hear from the school?
Yeah, that's all set.
That's all good.
Marathon. Sorry. The supervisors talked to the school district. Marathon's provided a legal description for the easement, and we'll have a proposed easement that will go before the school board in the near future.
Easement?
For the
Not talking about the
sidewalk
sidewalk
along
easement.
Brookside Drive.
Oh, I'm
Never
more
mind.
or less talking, and the school district handle more kids. Have they signed off on that?
That's fine. They can handle it.
I think you're looking for.
I know they're looking for it. It's one
Bring
thing that we
on.
normally look at. I've never seen it in here yet.
Well, we sent it, we sent the application to the school board.
They'd have to.
Yeah.
Reconvene the 25th. Do I have a motion to continue the hearing to that? Amanda made the motion, second by Bob. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Aye.
See you in a couple weeks. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
See you next week. Thank you for your responses.
And
everybody.
thanks for waiting too. Appreciate it.
Thank you. don't need to be-
Thank you.
No.
Your eyes looking at Verizon cell towers are 2,000 feet from our property line.
They won't hear a thing.
No, bring 'em. I want their money.
Oh. She could get it.
Do you need it so bad?
Unless anybody needs me, I'm gonna head out, you have some code revisions to discuss that are pretty self-explanatory.
Oh, we
The
do.
objections.
Well, first of all, we have, good night.
Have a good night, everybody. Good
Yeah.
job. on
Thank
both of
you,
those
Mr.
applications.
Thank you. Thanks for your help. All right, we have a continuation request from Scott Harder for 2024 138 4771 County Road 16. Scott would like another 2 weeks. So somebody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That brings us to Sarah. You've got three proposed local laws.
Technically, it's one local law. With three proposed changes to chapter 220-21 in the residential lake district. So. The first one is detached garages. The proposal removes the 900 square foot size limit. For detached garage. It doesn't mean that they're exempt from lot coverage requirements or anything else. Just that detached private garages are not limited to 900 feet elsewhere in
In the R.
residential Zoning districts, so it was, the ordinance committee would like to see a size limit removed from RLD. Yeah, with the knowledge that they still have to comply with everything else, so if a 900 square foot garage would push them over the building coverage in the RLD, they would need to propose something smaller or those simple variants. The second change has to do with generators. The town has been receiving a large number of applications to install a generator. In the RLD, as you know, they're limited to 2 accessory structures, one being detached private garage and one other accessory structure. So a lot of people were requesting variances because their generators were being considered to be an accessory structure. And they were having to make a choice between a shed or a generator, etc. So they're requesting variances and most of them were being granted. Actually, all of them were granted.
You mean variances or just related to generators?
All the variances for generators were being granted.
Do you remember at that joint board meeting we had last year? Someone raised that and we were all like, well, what the heck is that? We haven't heard of that, so, yeah.
And then, so what the ordinance committee is proposing is that in that section of code where it says they can have 2 accessory structures, one being a detached private garage and another one, that they also are specifically allowed a generator.
In general.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that it not count against their not
Just
to
to
allow
make it
accessory structure.
Accessory structure.
No, it's still defined as an accessory structure. That was not.
So they're
There was
basically,
a discussion about changing the definition, but they didn't want to. They also don't want,
they don't want to make it 3.
they didn't
Right.
want to make it so that generators didn't have to meet setbacks. And that they still are gonna have to comply with lot coverage because most of them are placed on some sort of a pad, concrete or other. And their size varies, but I think the proposed law put a, I can't remember if it put a limit on it. But anyway, similar to the other one, they're still gonna have to comply with the other things. If the proposed ad would push them over lot coverage requirements, we're gonna flag that and they're gonna have to move it, change it, reduce it or get a variance. So that was the idea that with that one. The third change was actually a recommendation from the ECB, the ordinance committee agreed that it was a good idea. So we have all these lots like on Sandy Beach or County Road 16 where people's tax parcels are bisected by a right of way, either private or public, like in County Road 16 would be public. And people are using the allowable total lot coverage of their whole parcel and putting everything on the lakefront portion, which is not ideal. So this law would impose a little bit more restriction to prevent them from doing that. While at the same time understanding that people typically are going to want to use that part of their lot more. There's also a provision in there that if they are proposing to tear down and rebuild, they can't, I don't want to say this wrong. Oh, I don't have the code, I just have my memo. Which is not
Same
Yeah, it can't
Proposed
be,
new structure must be
can't be
constructed to
larger.
have the same percentage of building coverage on the lot as the structure being demolished.
Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily have to go in the exact same location, but it can't take up more space. And we didn't want to restrict it to the same location because some locations currently are not ideal and we wanted to give them the chance to
keep
put it in a better
footprint,
place,
move it.
but not grow it.
In the new proposed 3A, the first sentence, kind of after the comma, the lakefront portion of the lot shall have a maximum lot coverage of 50%. It's like, to me, that reads as like, that's not a deterrent, that's an invitation. Right, so maybe we word it. If the intent is to do this in this manner, we word it as should not exceed the lakefront portion of the lot should not exceed max of the 50% of the max lot coverage on the lakeside.
You're trying to leave a calculation of the other side in there or something?
So I read it as like it could be, and
Yeah,
like
I
it's
get-
saying
I get 30%
shall
now.
be 50, exactly,
I get 30% now, but I want to increase it.
Right.
Compared to what's on the backside.
right, exactly, yep.
So you're just saying, instead of saying shall have a maximum, you're suggesting that it be worded in a way that sounds more negative, like.
Right, yeah,
Shall not have more than.
right, exactly, yes.
That one saves on my project, so Chuck, I'm gonna take credit.
Get on it.
Good job.
Thanks, Kim. And Kim, is that what I proposed, is that in spirit of what the ECB was trying to get to?
We're trying to get to, so people don't put everything in the lakeside, so if they have like
Right,
10 acres on the opposite
Right.
side and
got it,
they're never gonna trip over the lot or building coverage.
got it, okay. That was my only,
Any comments on the other drafts? Karen, this question.
So the part about design a new residential structure is not resolving any increase to pre-existing upland. Is the thought that that would like preclude anybody from either applying for a variance?
No, you never preclude that.
Right, okay, that's,
Still
that was
allow
what I
for
was. Yeah,
variance,
that like they
but-
still have to have that relief valve.
Reiteration. Of- I think it was, I mean, that's what, so we did bring that up in ordinance that our pre-existing non-conformance chapter kind of takes care of that, but they wanted it. Double in there as a reminder.
double post.
As long as, you know. One of the basic tenets of zoning is that you can apply for relief for the zoning board. So as long as you still have that opportunity, you can't just say like, oh, you can't apply for a variance. They can apply for this.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
because it
that-
would
So
be,
is there any,
That was discussed.
they could still request it.
is there any sense of what the average pre-existing non-conforming lot coverage is on the lakeside? Is it more than 50%?
Think we went through that one time.
500% over. No,
It's tall.
That'd be.
it's probably,
On the east side. or the
probably
west side?
not,
Not a big lot or a little lot.
it's,
On the east side, it's buku, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. West side,
What is the sea? So many.
Yeah.
these Cottages being torn down
Yeah.
and they're double in size. Haven't showed up.
Yep.
That would be fun.
Well, but that's still a lot.
GNA's, but that, this is really referring to if it's the
Aerial
aerial
amount.
imagery, like.
You can't expand it. They're just saying it again.
Okay, well, Sarah, if you could pass on that comment, I guess, that we made the bid, and I think the
if
The
you
variance.
want
the
to
entire
read it,
board.
let me know.
Okay.
circulate that. That's it for that. Meeting minutes from back on the 25th of February. Everybody take a look at them. Everybody cool? Any corrections?
So moved to approve.
And then whoever.
Okay, I got a
wants
motion, a
second,
second. All in favor?
Just pick
Aye.
a name on a hat at this point.
Okay, no money to give out to anyone? No releases? Next meeting's the 25th. I thought we'd be able to get rid of some of these, but
Oh,
they keep carrying on. Okay, so we'll have the cell tower back. We'll have another shot at Uptown. And a couple other applications. I don't have it in front of me. All right,
oh. Me,
anybody have anything else? For the group? No?
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 8:49 p.m.
Very good.
Second.
Abstain.
Full favor? Folks, now that
Yeah, just do it on the minutes.
it's adjourned, yeah.